Welcome, everyone, to day 4 of bLU Talk's Amplify Your Message. I'm your host, Laura Lake, and today my co-host is Annie. So I'm going to introduce myself, then I'll ask you to introduce you. And here's the secret. While she's introducing herself, I'm going to be sharing it on social media. You should share it too. That would be much appreciated. So for those who have never met me, yes, I am the host here at bLU Talk's Amplify Your Message, but I also run my own business where I help change makers and solopreneurs with messages, just like you and I and our audience, to courageously connect with their audience. That means we're going to elevate the way that they share their stories, which secretly means we're going to be talking about emotions. What? All the stuff that we don't want to talk about. Because that vulnerability and going deeper to that part that's hard to talk about is exactly where your ideal clients are. And if we can't talk about it, then unconsciously what we're saying is we don't like to talk about them. Gut punch. So let's bring in the love, let's bring in the caring, let's courageously connect so that your stories help change people's lives. So Annie, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, thank you. And I loved hearing that a little bit more about, what you do too, Laura. So I am a CEO, I'm a multipreneur. I've got over 20 years experience in the financial services field. And really what I do now is I bridge the tangible with the intangible, meaning that I help people learn about how money works, but also their relationship with money. So we dive in. My success coaching is about giving people permission to trust their instincts and speak up and use their voice like we're doing here today. And so I'm going to really enjoy this today because I get to hear other people's stories and their journeys and how they got to a place where they can amplify their message.
I was just like, where did I put my good pen?
The favorite pen. It's the only one that works well.
It's also the one with like the phone thing on the back, so I could use my phone. And I tend to I feel it because it's soft. It's really nice. So let's bring our first guest up on stage with us. I knew when I moved my desk that everything would switch. Jamie, just give me a thumbs up if you're ready to join us. All the fun and laughter starting the day. Jamie, what I usually do at the beginning of interviews is, as I said, behind the scenes, I want to get to know the human being behind the message, behind the business. So I don't want your pre-programmed responses and your elevator pitches. I want to know you. So here's my question to help me do that. If you could have other people describe you in 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
That's a great question. And good morning, everybody. I was like, good morning. Yeah, I would say, first of all, transformative would be a big one for me. Connected and authentic.
Connected and authentic. When people talk or think really quickly, I can never write that fast. So transformative, connected, and authentic.
Yeah.
The only other question I pre-programmed for all of these interviews is, why do these 3 words, transformative, connected, and authentic, what do those 3 words have to do with your key message for people?
Well, I would say my key message for people is we've entered a new era. Like, it's true. Like, if you realize, like, if you look at politics and technology and just the climate that we're in and every aspect of our world right now, we have entered a new era. And so for me, I want to bring people to that level, to that new era leadership, because things have truly changed. The things that used to work no longer work. And so a piece of that is that transformation. We have to transform into the new era, right? We have to transform into that identity. But we also want to do it authentically. I think so often we have, as high achievers, I work with a lot of high achievers, and as high achievers, there's a lot of expectation on leaders. And it's really important that we do it authentically. And so I think that those are really big pieces right now, especially right now, because people are done with the masks. They're done with, you know, what you're supposed to do or what you're supposed to say or, you know, who you're supposed to be, right? You're like, yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, we can talk about that.
And then the other piece is connected, right? I love to be, I'm a God girl. And so I'm connected to God, however you view that in your own life, but that's source for me. And I'm also connected to myself. I'm connected to my message and my deeper impact. And that drives me, like that connection to what I was born to do, what makes me come alive, but it's also moving others to that same place. Like I love leading leaders because I feel like there's such a transformative place that we can go right now. And there's movements that need to be made. There's movements that need to be created. And so really my drive right now has been creating new era leaders. And that's within companies, that's within, you know, individual leaders that are business owners. And really, they have their own movement that they were created for. I call it your destiny identity. And yeah, it's what I call it because it's truly, it is your highest level version of you. It's your truest identity that you were formed to create. And when we step into that, that's really where we're supposed to be right now. It was funny because last fall I was hanging out with God and actually writing one of the chapters for contributing to one of the books. And I had gone through a really difficult season. Yes, one of the books. I think it's number volume 14, but I had gone through a really challenging season. That's really what takes us to the place, right? When we've gone through a really challenging, unearthing, up-leveling season where every aspect of ourselves gets unearthed, up-leveled, you know, just kind of down to the core of who we are. And everything gets redistributed. And I was hanging out, God, I'm like, why did we go through this season? Like, what is this even about? And we can dive more into that. But it was really Jamie, like, I understand we as typical, you know, just society, we think, okay, it's this and then this and then this. It's a linear climb to where you're supposed to go. And he was like, I don't want your top version in 10 years or 20 years. It is not then, it's now. And that's the new message I have is it's not 10 or 20 years from now that you're supposed to leap into the top version of you. Time has accelerated with all of this technology. Time has accelerated with how fast the world is moving. And it is not then that we're supposed to move into it. It is not a linear climb anymore. It has now become an accelerated, like, step into that version of you now. And it was an awakening of, oh, like, that's kind of a big deal, right? I don't feel prepared for that. What do you even mean? And really, it's the truth. It's God is calling. There's a calling for people right now to step into how he actually created you, but not waiting, no longer waiting, and connecting to that deeper source, connecting to all of the things that you were actually meant to do and thrive in.
Okay, I love analogies. And while you were talking, I have this analogy. I'm just going to use a piece of paper, random piece of paper. So if we're here and we're used to like the climb, right? What's happening is this is happening. And this is happening. And all of a sudden, what used to be forever is just like right there.
Yes. That is such a great analogy because it's true. And what also happens though with that is your identity has to completely shift.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what's really huge is when you shift, let's say you're here, this is your comfort zone. These are the things you're used to. This is how your norm is. This is how you're successful. And I work with highly successful women leaders, companies, right? But what happens is when you have to take a big leap in your identity, there's a big gap. Like you don't know how to operate like that person. You have never operated. It's not that you're not capable. It's just that you haven't done it. And then there's all these old beliefs that shift back in and pull you back down. And so you really need the support, but you need to up-level every aspect of your life. Like you need to up-level your boundaries, your support systems.
Yeah.
You need to up-level your environment, who you're around, what you listen to, what you do, your habits, you know, and
your relationships.
Yes, your relationships 100%. Like every aspect of you has to up level. But because it's such a big leap, that creates a feeling of incompetence sometimes. It creates lack of confidence. It creates confusion. You feel lost. You're like, I just don't even know, because this is where I'm used to operating. This is how I do things successfully. And I know those are trusted, right? And it's not just it's not a little step anymore. It's a giant leap of trusting you're enough, trusting that you're already ready, and that it's okay if you fail at moments, because those are just the moments that get you higher and faster to where you want to go.
Ooh, okay, so I have another analogy, because my mind just plays movies in my head, so I understand. So, do you know how we're little kids and they're very short, and when they learn to walk, the stairs that they're climbing is like hip height to them at that point. But then as they grow, the stairs don't grow, so the stairs become easier and easier. But then what happens is the stairs that they're trying to traverse for new things, like us as adults, if we take that out of like the physical into our work or into our personal development, those stairs now become big again, but we're not used to it anymore. But if we just stayed with that energy of the hip height stairs, it wouldn't feel the same. And I feel like it's the same in life itself. Is it used to be such little increments of our personal growth that now, technology, especially the internet, when that came out, knowledge is at our fingertips. Again, we're having those big leaps that we're just not used to. We don't have those skills. And you're here to teach us some of those skills. Thank you.
It sounds like the ultimate leap of faith from what you know to who you were meant to become.
100%. Like it is, because it's that trusting yourself, like learning to fully trust yourself when you don't see the outcome. That's the hardest thing, I think, for us, especially as achievers. Like you do something, you see an outcome, you see a result, and that's not the truth right now. Like you have to take such a big leap that the outcome that you're seeking, you're not going to see yet. Like it's not going to just happen for you. And so there's this unearthing of who you know yourself to be, and yet there's a bigger version of you that you don't know yourself to be yet. And you have to trust that that's already there in place. And even when you don't see the results, you're on the right path. Like that's the hard part, right? Because we are used to seeing the outcomes, the results, the tangible things. And right now, because you're taking such a big leap, you're not going to see it. And what I've seen too lately is I used to work a lot with women that were wanting to go to the next level, right? Like they are high achievers, already successful. They might want to do, it's nuanced when you get to the higher level. It's nuanced things that you actually need, that you're seeking. And so they might want to achieve 5% more or 1% more. It's these little tweaks that they actually need to take it to their next level. Or when they're at that level, feeling more power, presence, and authority and confidence in that level so they can maintain that level. Right now, what I'm seeing, ladies, is there's a shift. And so more people now, because of this big leap, they're all pivoting. There's a pivot in who they are. There's a pivot in how they do business. Because again, how we used to do business and the things that used to work don't any longer work. Like you have to have this adaptive mindset right now to actually be the leader. I always say, like, we've entered a new era. Some will be left behind while others will become icons. And that's a hard thing to digest, but it's true. If you choose to just not move forward as fast as we're moving right now, you will be left behind. But you have the opportunity and possibility right now also to become the icon, to become the truest, highest level version of you that you were called to, but you have to trust.
I have so many thoughts right now. Okay. Right? So many. Because I had an online birthday party this year because I realized that most of my friends, they're not local. And I just moved like 2 years ago. So I did a Zoom birthday party. And what I realized was I am in what one of my friends had called the F it 40s. I was like, oh, that's a perfect label because that's exactly how I feel. I'm so done with other people telling me how I should do things. and the algorithm telling me and the experts telling me. I'm like, but that doesn't feel aligned for me. That doesn't feel authentic to who I want to be and who I know that I am at my core. So now I'm trying to say, F it, and figure out, well, where is my place of joy? Because that is my direction. And then how can I use all of the tools around me to make that happen in a way that feels good, not just for me, but the people that I'm serving and the people that are around both of us in our communities. Feels so much better. But I liked those 3 words that you said, the power, the presence, and the authority, because that's finally something that is building within me.
That's beautiful. And I love that. And I just want to acknowledge that, because when we allow that as women, that one of the biggest pieces of presence and power is truly being congruent, right? That truest alignment with who you are. When you are there, then you don't need to be anybody else. You don't need to feel like you have to fill a certain shoe, right? Like you don't have to be a certain way, because you are already the most powerful version of yourself and you're aligned with who that is. And so when you walk in a room, you walk in with ease, with power. You command the room, you command the stage. And that's another thing I would say is right now, and this is why I love bLU, is because right now, the ability to use your authority is going to take writing books, getting on stages, doing podcasts, right? That's how you leap into your authority, your credibility. That's how you leap into the industry leader, the new era leader, is really using your authority. But you have to go backwards first and have the presence and the congruency, and then stepping into your power, and then knowing your message so clearly, which is what you're learning right now, right? You're becoming more of your voice, more of your message, more of the truest version of you, who you were created to be. As you learn that, now you step forward with speaking that and sharing that and creating your movement in the world via stage. And I work with a lot of women too that want to speak, they want to be on podcasts, they want to start podcasts. And so it's one of those things of like, you have to get clear on that first, so that you are that strong leader, so that you are leading in an authentic, congruent way that's aligned and fills you full of life and actually activates other people, because there's this magnetism when you have that.
I've got to jump in for a moment, because, you know, you mentioned power, presence, authority, and Laura, you're talking about, but it didn't feel aligned. And now I'm in my epic 40s and I'm not looking at external validation. Yeah. And I feel like when you talk, Jamie, about power, presence, and authority, you're talking about that internal power, presence, and authority.
100%. And that's so well said, Annie, because that's what it really comes down to, is similar to like that identity leap that I talked about. That's all internal work. And it's funny because many times people hire out for business strategies, and business strategies is amazing. But if you don't have the internal confidence and authority inside, you don't know who you are, you can't lead yourself, then you're not necessarily going to be able to apply all of those strategies as successfully. And that's why a lot of people still can't make them work, because they don't have the confidence. They don't really truly aren't aligned with themselves yet.
I feel like you're just speaking my story, Jamie.
Oh, yes. Yes. I so relate to what you're saying. But so if it's the unknown for them in the first place, to trust themselves, to connect with their inner power, presence, and authority, how do they start into this unknown?
That's such a great question. Well, I think, first of all, one of the biggest things I am leading people to do is like find space, first of all, and stop listening to there's so much stimulus. Everybody's trying to do this strategy and that strategy and this strategy. Like, you have to simplify right now, and you have to cut the noise, because there is so much noise. It's like when you're in the middle of a car jam and there's honking and you can't think, you can't actually align with what's true for you right now, right? Like, you can't even decide, like, when there's cars all around you and they're honking. I was in China several years back, and if you've ever been in China, the roads are crazy. Like, literally, it's like several lanes, all cars are honking to let you know which way they're going to go. There's people on scooters. There's 5 people on scooters driving. I mean, it's total chaos. It's so loud. And that's what life is like right now. And it's only going to get more like that. So we have to be in control of what we allow in our lives. We have to choose one or two paths. What is it that you really, really, truly desire? And if you don't know that, that's the first step, right? You have to get clear on that, what you desire. And then what are one or two experts that can help you with the first step, not 10. What's the first step? Because right now you just need the first step. When we try to align with 20 steps down the road right now, that's too much. You have to have a simplified strategy that is more potent. And also, as we move into this new era, you have to be able to shift, adapt, and change and pivot at any moment. And so that can also lead to, like, being simplified right now is huge. So get simplified, first of all. Identify one or two experts and cut out the rest of the noise. You can go back to these different individuals, these different inputs into your life in 6 months or 9 months or 12 months when it's more of what you need at that moment. But cut out the rest of the noise and get quiet. Because internally, we actually know what we need, but we don't listen, or we allow too much noise and stress and other people's opinions in. And right now, when I started to get quiet, when I was in the middle of this chaos of, getting kind of like up leveled with my whole entire life, I had to get quiet and allow the space and the time to dig deeper, to figure out what was holding me back still, what was not in alignment with that higher level, what are the next steps. So I think peace and quiet eliminate so many distractions, because all that does is create chaos, and it doesn't allow us to hear, to listen, to know the next step. We know we're sourced to know the next step, but we need to tap into that source, right? So
Yes. So I'm at that point in my life now, after the whole label of the F at 40s, which I keep laughing at because it's hilarious and so on point. I'm also finding myself to the point where I do have that confidence to say, this is my message. I've been here for a few years now. Just keeps getting more niche. But I have such internal validation, just as you were both saying, that if I have an expert in any area, before I would question myself, well, is this really the right thing? Am I saying it right? Did I pick up on the patterns correctly? Is my experience what I actually think, or was there something else? No, I can have those conversations with the experts questioning me and going, I see what you're saying. Here's how it compares. And standing up like I've never stood up before. It's like I have permission for that inner voice to be bold, to be assertive, to set up boundaries, which I'm still learning about. And it feels different. So Jamie, was there a time, I want to know the story behind all of this, because obviously you weren't this magical and badass your entire life. How did you get into this?
No, I've been through, like, I have a period. We're not going to talk about this period just because it doesn't apply to this, but I have a period when I got divorced years and years ago. I call it my hot mess decade. We all have those moments, right? And those are the biggest learning times. That's what actually creates who we are and how we can share. And the new era leader really came about because of my next level, right? It was God calling me up and out. And it was like a couple of years back, it started the process. And I started to shift my business model, and decide to do things differently and let go of a lot of other things that I was doing. And it was funny because in that, I'm like, okay, I'm going to pour, we're always told to pour yourself into it, go 100%. And I did that. Like, I went all in, and I felt the opening to say yes. And I hadn't felt that yet. And so when you hear the opening to say yes, you're like, okay, I am on point. Let's go. And you're trusting yourself. You're trusting, if you're a God girl or the universe, whatever you think of, you're trusting that source. And so I went and I listened, and I was in masterminds because I believe in investing in yourself very highly. Like, I've probably spent $150,000 investing in myself. I do 25K masterminds. Like, I really believe in top level. If you want to go fast and you want to do it with the right people and you want to learn the best way to do it, like, that's it. And so I was already doing all of that. And so I was learning from the experts. I was doing all the things. And yet, this is where the trust comes in. there were no results. And I was like, what in the world? And I'm used to results. Like I'm used to when I do something, I accomplish it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure it out. And it literally like up leveled everything. Like it was like an upheaval internally because I was being called to a higher level, but there was still things inside of me that weren't ready for that level. There were things that I needed to reconcile.
Ooh, yes.
Right? There's things that you have to reconcile. And it was funny because during this period, I'm like, okay, God, like, what is it that obviously I'm not doing something that I'm supposed to be doing. What is it? And it's that submissive level, right? Of when you finally get to the point of not doing it, just in inaction and completely on your own. And he started like bringing up like literally things that had happened years ago. And he's like, I want you to go back and I want you to talk to this person and ask for forgiveness, even though you weren't the only one that had, like, it was definitely a dual interaction that created kind of a rift. He's like, even though I don't want you to talk about their issue, I want you to simply apologize for your part in it. I was like, oh, right.
Find your peace.
Yeah. And it's funny because I hadn't even thought about it. Like it wasn't even on my radar, but it was like, just do these things. And they were random. And I was like, okay. But they were it was also leveling because it wasn't your part. It was only my part. It was only I'm taking responsibility for my part in it. And it was humbling to say the least. And then the strategies that I was doing weren't quite working. Like the things that used to work just didn't work. And I'm like, okay, what is going on? And I just started realizing I need to internally begin to do things differently. But what does that even look like? And I had to start to work forward in that. But because of that, it was like I lost my confidence because all of a sudden I'm having all this input, not having any output or results. And also I'm in the middle of this transformation, right? This transition. In the transition period, you don't feel competent. And I was doing literally everything I was doing was new. When you're in the middle of doing everything new, like it's nothing that you're used to, it's nothing that you're really good at, but you're choosing to do it because it's what you need to go that level. All of a sudden you feel lost a little bit. I felt lost because I'm like, I don't even know what I'm good at anymore.
Like starting kindergarten all over again.
It was. And I was
making new friends.
Yeah. And it was like that. It was like, okay, I don't know. I don't even know anymore. Right. And then that was at that level where it was just understanding. That was when God really took me to the point of, okay, if I were to allow you to be successful right now, you would think you're doing the right thing. Right? If I were to allow you, because as achievers, we're like, oh, I'm having success. I'm on the right path. Right? And we're always taught to be very perseverant. And so if you have some success, then you keep on because you're going to have more success. Right? And that was in the moment where he's like, not then, as far as how you're going to lead, who you're going to be, that destiny identity. Now I'm calling you now to step into that version of you. And that's when that shift happened. That's when I chose to be like, okay. And I chose to walk and step forward and in that boldness, start to lead from that level. And that's when everything changed. And that's when I started realizing really there's so many different things that are happening during this new era. You need to position yourself in a new way, right? You need to be connected in a new way. There's an eternal identity that shift that has to happen for you to operate in that boldness you talked about, Laura, right? And I call it that audacious boldness. Once you actually start to step into that version of you without knowing, without seeing, just knowing that that's who you're called to be and leading from that place, you then get what you're talking about, Laura, that internal shift of, no, like I can listen to the experts, I can hear them and have them question me, but I know internally what I need to be doing, how I need to lead. You have this confidence, this like, because it's unshakable and undeniable, because it's not about what everybody else says. It's about what you already know. And you're finally walking it out.
So I just double checked the meaning of audacity because I needed to know for sure. Because I was watching this reel and it's a comedian, right? So take it however you want. But they like to have questions. So she puts her hand in the bowl. She picks out a random question from a random audience member. And the question was, what is the difference between men and women? She's like, well, men are born with something called the audacity. And I was like, oh my God. Where they're willing to take those risks that generally, as women, we're like, no, we got to be safe. We got to protect. Don't be bold. Don't be loud. All of the stuff that comes with society and culture. But again, it's changing, especially with conversations like this. It's like, how can you get that internal validation? How can you create that audacious, what was the second word? The audacious?
Bold audacity?
Wasn't audacious identity, was it?
I don't think so, but I like it.
I have to go back and rewatch.
I don't know. I was on a bold one. No idea.
I got excited. I forgot to write down the second word. But the whole destiny identity and the audacious identity and whatever word you use there, yeah, it's not something that we're used to.
No. And what I would also say is it's interesting. There was a study done years ago about like women in the C-suite and men in the C-suite. And this is something that holds women back is the man, like they're given a new task, a new project, and they're like, hey, their boss is like, can you do this? And they're like, yeah,
Sure.
I have no idea. They've never done it before. They're just like, yeah. And like they'll figure it out, right? And the women, because we are nurturing, we are perfectionists, we're driven, we want to already know, okay, I need to be able to do this, and I know I can do it this way, and then if I do this, then I can do, and then so until they know those conversations in their head that they know they can produce outcome, they're like, well, I think I can. This is why the men get hired like to a higher level so many times, because they just boldly are like, yeah, I can do it. And the women, even though they might be a better fit, they're questioning because they haven't done it yet. And so they don't want to promise or overpromise something that they are not sure that they can deliver, or how to deliver it. And that's such a different way of women versus men, how they operate so often, and why things are the way they are. And so, yeah, so I just want to encourage you. I want you to be, I have a challenge that I'm doing right now. It's called Emblazon. And I'm like, emblazon your path, like lead the way. Like no longer wait. It is time to step forward in that boldness, that audaciousness, that like you just are. Lead that and lead with that.
My word for the year is courageous. And so there's so many things that I'm doing that scare the crap out of me, but I'm doing them anyway. Or at least I'm taking steps toward it because some of them are pretty big. Like I love power vocals, and I haven't really sung in public since high school. So, and I want to write music and I want to share that music. So like one step at a time. Okay. I got to like feel comfortable singing in front of people again before I could ever produce an album and be like, here you go. One step, eating an elephant, one bite at a time. Yeah. So Jamie, we're at the time in the interview and I want to ask you so many more questions, but I also want to make sure that we know where to find you and your favorite way to communicate.
Yeah, you can find me at Jamie Samuelson, and that's with an SON, .com. On all the social handles, you can find me at Jamie G. Samuelson. And yeah, I would love to connect. I have a masterclass that I am coming, that's called Enter Your New Era, where there's a new era formula that I share so that you can become and start to begin to be the leader in your industry in this era, really make the pivots you need to know, right? Need to do. And so you can sign up for that, but I have all kinds of things that we can do together. So just DM me is probably the fastest way via social media. And again, it's Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and it's just Jamie G. Samuelson.
Nice. I think you're in my head before these interviews too, because one of the songs I've been listening to lately is Pretty Girl Era. It's so catchy. But at first I thought it said Petticoat Era. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Well, sure. But That's so good. Also, Jamie, at the end of an interview, I love to hold space for anything that may be in your mind or on your heart that you just need to share with people. So what would you love to leave people with?
Yeah. If you're listening to this, you were meant to be here. There's a reason. And I just want to emblazon you. I want to challenge you. I want to encourage you and invite you. It's your time. Like, stop waiting. Stop waiting. Stop coming up with excuses. Like, you are being called now. Now is your era. And I also realized something else. I was playing in everybody else's playground when I was meant to build my own arena. I want you to stop playing in your own, stop playing in everybody else's playground. It's time to build your own arena. And so step into your destiny and identity. I'm just telling you, you were created to do something more, to do something bigger. There is a message, a movement that people need. And you were meant to be on this earth. And so stop denying yourself, stop denying everybody else, and just do it. You're not going to be perfect, but you're going to do it. And you're going to do it in a big, bold way because you can and you were created to. So.
Okay, one more question. If you were to create, we've a little bit of time. If you were to build your own arena, JB, what kind of playful, 6-year-old wish would you put into that arena?
Okay, I don't understand that question at all. What do you mean? What would I put in my arena?
So if you said to build your own arena instead of your playground. So of course we know it's all imaginary. Okay. But if you were to create this playful arena in your mind, come at it with the energy of that 6-year-old that's within you. That's just like, I'm going to wish for whatever I want to wish for. What kinds of things would that heart, that soul igniting kind of playfulness, what would you put in that arena?
Well, it was interesting because I heard this the other day, and I think many people have heard this. When we're small, we think big, and when we're big, we think small.
Exactly.
Right? And I think I just heard this the other day. And as a 6-year-old, I think I wanted to create and be seen. And I think so many of us want to be seen but not to be seen in the biggest version of who we are, like express every ounce of our essence. And so my arena would look like a global stage for women to create. I want artists from all different walks of life on there. I want women that are emblazoned with their own message, that we're igniting other women. Like, that sounds fun to me. Like, let's create global stages where we're literally just moving out all of this inconsistency with where things are going, where we're moving out all of the things that are keeping people from freedom, right? We're freeing women to actually step forward and create this massive communion, this massive collaboration of movements and freedom and all of these things that can truly move the earth, can truly move the globe to a better place, to a more spiritually fulfilled place, a fulfilled place in what you're doing, who you are, what you offer. And it's creative, it's fun, it's playful, it's not hard, right? It's fun because we're actually immersed in the glory that we were meant to share.
Yeah. Okay, see, that had the energy of your 6-year-old in it. It's all good. So Jamie, I'm going to call this the official close of your interview. But I do ask you to stay for a few more minutes, as I love to do a little bit of a roundtable to share some of our favorite moments or insights from the conversation.
Awesome.
So I'm actually going to start with Annie, just to lovingly pick on her. Annie, what is something that stood out to you during our conversation today?
Well, I had this moment when you were talking about, when you were giving the example of, in the corporate world and in the leadership, in the C-suite area of the corporate world, when somebody's given a task, and how, women tend to undervalue their strengths and their contributions. And I just had this image, and I thought, when there's a lot of research to suggest that women will go ahead with something if they feel like they have most of the qualifications, right? And yet when we become pregnant, we're not like, am I qualified? Am I ready? Am I going to be able to do this? It's kind of like you just leap in. You don't actually know how it's going to turn out. And because of, but we have a history of knowing and seeing other women go through it. and what that journey is like, and the support that's received, and the chances of success, and then how that is really, the beginning of a journey for more than one life. And I think if we looked at it like that, it's you are birthing the new you, right? You are coming into this new world with wonder, with fresh eyes, right? With a willingness to learn, and knowing that there's going to be people around you. You don't know who they are yet, maybe. There's going to be a bunch of new people around you who are going to be there along the way to help you take your first step, and then, your first leap, right? And this is how I metaphorically see the work that you're doing. Is just, it's, I don't know, maybe in a weird way, you're like the doctor saying, I'm ready for you. Like, you can come on out. I'm going to show you the way, and actually what I feel like you're probably doing is you're just really helping people see that they already know the way.
That's
right.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that.
Awesome. Jamie, what's something that stood out to you?
I would say that right there. I love that. Because it's such a beautiful analogy of what is needed, but also I think that is like women need to support women. And I think when you take that, I see so many, especially leaders, they are the one. So they don't rely on anybody else. They are used to being the one that is responsible. They are the one that they don't feel like they can be messy, right? They don't feel like they can talk about what's really going on. And that's a lot of the women that I work with and leaders that I work with. And I think it's that support system of, no, you're ready. And also it may be a little messy along the way, just like birth,
and life
and all the things. Like, it's going to be messy, and there is greatness on the other side, but it's also pain in the middle getting to that place sometimes. That was beautiful. I love it.
If I have more time, I'd ask you about the interview itself. That way you could refer back.
I also just love how, Jamie, your title is elevation strategist. When I think elevation, I think mountain. And Laura's got earrings that look like mountains.
Oh, I love that. And she talked about the elevation, and she did the folding thing. There's all of it's coming together now, ladies.
Oh, I love that book.
Oh, the mountain is you.
It came up yesterday, and it was just a bit too far. Okay, so one thing that stood out to me was I loved that your message and the way that you worded it, you said creating new era leaders. Even that word era, it's like, it's not past, it's not future. It's like this space in time that has a different feeling, a different being, a different way of living, and a different, I want to say culture, but that's not the right word. You get what I'm getting at. It has its own boundary, I guess. And we have to move out of it into something new. Even just that word era hits it on the nose. It's the identity shift. It's gaining that audacity. It's the confidence, the external to the internal, all of that in one word.
Well, and when you say that, it's really literally letting go and almost dying to that old self, literally creating a new start, a new human, a new identity. And you make it anything you want. Who do you want to be? What do you really want? That's you now. You get to choose.
Yeah.
But you have to choose, right?
Awesome. So thank you so much, Jamie. This was so much fun.
Ladies,
and thank you for starting your day.
Thank you for being with me today. I'm so excited. Thank you.
Definitely. Bye, Jamie.
Bye.
Excuse me. Our next guest is behind the scenes. Ravi, just give me a thumbs up if you're ready. Awesome. Welcome to the stage. I heard
Thank you.
I heard you're having a busy day today.
It's been full, but that's good.
I appreciate you joining us. So, Ravi, I don't know if you know about my secret way to start off interviews or not.
I don't know that I do.
Oh, you're going to love it because I know you. So the way that I like to start interviews is I don't want your elevator pitch. I don't want your notes and pre-programmed responses that you've told 100 times. I want to get to know the human being behind the business and the message. So I want to get to know Ravi. So here's my question. If you could have other people describe you in 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
3 words.
Mm-hmm. Open.
Joyful.
Ooh, joyful.
And empathy was the other one that popped up for me.
Open, joyful, and empathy. Okay, here's my only other scripted question. How do those words, open, joyful, and empathy, how do they play a role in the key message that you have for people?
Well, they actually do.
They always do.
I mean, it's really about, it's interesting. I've been through quite a bit the last little while, and the mantra that carried me through it is I choose joy. And I think a lot of people, what I've come to realize, instead in life, they choose what I call the cesspool of suck.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe that's a choice. And even if it's done by default, it's a choice. And so my work, whether it's corporate, working with an organization or with an individual, really is helping them connect more deeply with who they really are, what brings them joy, and bring that more into what's there, what's on purpose, what's got meaning, what brings you passion.
Is that what the soul engineering is for?
Absolutely. It's about how do you bring more heart and soul into everything you do, right? Into work, so it's not just a drudgery or 9 to 5. Because how many people are going on and on about, oh, I can't wait till retirement? No, you should be loving what you do.
Mm-hmm.
But also in every other part of your life, is it filling your soul? Is it allowing your soul to flow through?
I think you would have liked most of our conversations this week. A lot of people are talking about what lights them on fire and what do you desire?
Mm-hmm.
What makes you come alive? Like it's the same core to all of those questions.
Absolutely. I think that there's a hunger that's emerging. And I think the pandemic actually accelerated that for a lot of us because I think before that, a lot of people kept themselves too busy to realize there was something missing. And then all of a sudden we were locked away for months and we couldn't busy ourselves out of it. We had to start to face ourselves and all the stuff that we were fighting for, all this, the promotion and this and that. It's like, who cares? It really came front and center. That's why we got things like the Great Resignation, people leaving these jobs they'd been in for decades. They're realizing there's got to be more. I think is that something, Annie, for you?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yep.
Wow.
That, why am I doing this? It makes no sense. And I think there's a huge growing hunger for that sense of meaning, for the sense of that there's got to be something that brings me joy, allows me to bring all of me into what I do. And I mean, even the work that I do that's corporate, a lot of people talk about mission, vision, and most of it sounds like it's about as motivating as a root canal. I start with what's our shared purpose in plain English, in a way that everybody gets excited about.
Yeah.
And then you operationalize that. Then you concretize that into strategy. The same as an individual. There's a few more things to what I call the core of who we are, but it's got to start with the purpose and the why. And then everything else comes from that. It's easy.
So how did you get into the speaking and the soul engineering and people's potential?
Nuclear physics.
I knew that would come up.
Yeah, I was, I wish I could say I planned it, but the universe takes you where you need to go. I was a shy, geeky, nerdy kid who spoke math as a second language, and physics was kind of fun. And I stayed in it for a few years, and it was kind of fun. But finally I realized as I grew out of that my passion is people, not eating radiation. So when I went back and got some training in business and started working in organizations, that's when I discovered, as a physicist, I learned to work with complexity and complex systems. And the secret to complexity is not to over analyze it or overcomplicate it, but it's to find the simplest, tiny little pressure points. You put a little bit here, a little bit there, and everything shifts. And I found when I moved into business, organizations and people were complex systems. That same lens applies. And then parallel to that, I was going through, well, I've continued to go through a healing journey from traumas I had as a child from being in a really bad political situation. And that healing was also a journey through complexity. And through that, I found it was about healing myself, but I found many resources that I can work with for my clients as well.
I love the visual you said with the complex problems. Sometimes just that little simplification of the small moment or the subtleties, as the word that we used earlier, helps to shift and adjust the entire system. That also ties greatly in with that analogy with the elephant. You know, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yep. And you cannot find those spots logically, rationally, or by analyzing. You have to use your intuition and felt sense. And it's you sense into it. And that, you know, the intuition to me is a proven skill. You can prove it to yourself.
How do you do that?
I love that you just said that.
Well, I'm a scientist still, first of all, right? So I'm very scientific in even the woo-woo stuff. But science doesn't mean you necessarily understand how it works. It just shows you can reproduce these results. And something I do with a lot of my coaching clients for intuition. We all have intuition. How often have you said, oh, I knew I shouldn't have done that, or I knew I should have done that, right? We know, we just don't listen. So simple exercise that you can do is keep a logbook separate from your journal. And every decision that you make, write down, give it its own page, write down what the decision is, what your intuition is, what you wound up doing, and what the effects will be. Like for small decisions, like where do I go for lunch? It's easy, the effect. For bigger decisions, it may take longer to say, here's what happened. But what I found for me, what my clients have all found is, you know, forget 50 shades of gray. There's not one shade of gray. It's black and white. Every time I listened to my intuition, even if it was the stupidest, most idiotic, ridiculous thing, it worked out. And every time I ignored it, even if I was doing the most logical, rational, the thing that everyone would say do, something blew up in my face. And it was black and white. I mean, it saved my life, literally, on a few occasions. So I will take a blind leap of faith on my intuition.
Wow.
Well, now I want to know how it saved your life. Like I was going to say
do
something
you?
else, and then you said it saved my life. I'm like, forget what I was going to say. Tell me about the saving the life.
Well, I'm East Indian by heritage, but I've never lived there, right? And I traveled there a few times in my 20s, and I was living out in Winnipeg in my mid-20s, and I had gone out a few years before for my first trip to visit India with Dad. I had relatives. It was cool. And I thought, let's go. I'm going to go out. And there was another Indian guy. I didn't know him well, friend of a friend who was going to go. We said, let's travel together. And so we booked our flights. And this was before I really got into this, before I really got this. But my spider sense went off. It was like, you know, do not pass go, do not collect $200, just change this. And I was going like, I have no idea, but I knew I had to. So I changed my flight and I went 3 weeks later and I came back the day I was supposed to leave and told this other guy, and he's going, why did you change? I went, I don't know. But so I went on my trip, had a great time, and I came back and thought I might see him, right? I'm getting off plane, he's getting on, but with customs, we passed it. Didn't connect. And then the next day, I found out the Air India flight was blown up.
Oh God.
Right? So when that happens, it's like, whoa, all right. And like say things like that have happened a couple of other times too, but that was the most dramatic. So, I sort of trust that there's something communicating to me.
I love to develop this. Well, I think I know we're born with this, and yet it gets kind of worked out of us.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things, I don't know if I ever told you this, Laura, but one of the things I do with my daughter, and I did ever since she was like really small, is when I pick her up from aftercare, we're close enough we can walk home. Whether we go left or right, we're going to get home.
Mm-hmm.
So I would actually put her in charge and I'd say, well, what are your instincts telling you? Do we go left today or do we go right today? Knowing that the next day she could change her mind, right? Or even as we started to go one way, she's like, nope, actually, let's go this way. And so, and when we got back home, I'd say, isn't that amazing that because you trusted your intuition to go this way, we saw this dog, we met this neighbor, we saw this new thing, we saw this cardinal or that blue jay.
I love that.
Right. And so, because there's far too many opportunities that try to work it out of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was important for me, having been on my journey and you being on your journey, like we all we all have a journey. It's just kind of how we traverse it. But I think it's so important that we start this earlier.
I agree. But we are in such a left brain society that is so afraid of this. But that's why I bring in that method, that scientific method. Test it. Don't trust your intuition. Test it. Prove it to yourself that it works or not. But I love that you were not just instilling that in her and asking her the choice, but then reinforcing it with, wow, look at the magic that happened because we went that way. I think that's brilliant. Because again, this is not rocket science. I can say that. I'm a rocket scientist. Okay. It is simple stuff like this that makes the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's what I always look for. What are the tiny, simple things? So I love that you did that with your daughter.
Well, and it's in a safe container.
Yeah.
Right. Because when you kind of go out into the world, there's a lot of unknowns.
Yes.
Right. And then actually that's when you need to trust yourself more.
Totally. But you know what? I think it's not just what's out there. Our biggest enemy to trusting that is the monkey mind, our head brain. And oh, what if I do this? Oh my God, what will people say? That's the biggest enemy.
So how do we get out of the monkey mind? Because I know we're not the only ones.
Well, funny you should ask.
Go to the jungle.
I actually have a Jedi mind trick that I found that actually does that. Will let you shut it off just like that. It takes about a week to practice. You need about 10 or 15 minutes a day. What?
You need like the little. Like,
Laura, I just saw what you were doing.
Thank you.
I have a mini Yoda, by the way, in my house. I do.
Nice, that is.
I let my daughter inherit it. I'm like, you don't know what this is yet, but you will one day.
Come to the
nice,
dark
that
side.
is.
We have cookies.
Yeah. So, it takes about 10 minutes a day to learn this, and not all at once, like a minute here, a minute there, and within a week you'll be able to shut it off whenever so you can get to sleep without it running you. You can stop beating yourself up. So, and I've got a free e-course I can share information if you'd like.
Tell me.
Tell me, please.
I can get to sleep. Oh my God. When was the last time I slept?
Well, now here's something that's fascinating. I've talked about this in many of my keynotes, right? And I ask people how many people regularly have trouble sleeping at night because their heads won't shut up. And 90% of the audience puts their hands up. And I share this site. And there may be hundreds of people in the audience. And it's really sad that over the next day, I might see 8 or 10 or 12 people sign up. People are, as much as it's uncomfortable. People call it the comfort zone. It's not comfortable. Yeah, that.
I haven't clicked on it yet. Good to know.
See, she was in a conference. I spoke that a few weeks.
I left it open so that I wouldn't forget about it.
Well, that's good. First step. You got to click. But yeah, the site is silenceselftalk.com. But it's we get into the rut of what we know, and people call it the comfort zone. It's not comfortable. I mean, I have had CEOs, brilliant minds, fight irrationally to stay in toxic situations. I call it the familiar zone. It's what we know.
Yes.
So even though there's this resource, only a handful actually click through. So it'll be interesting to see. Yes, Laura.
You know what's interesting is that this also starts really young. Like I remember when my daughter was really small and we were cuddling at night, and I'd say, "Okay, it's time to sleep now," and she's like, "I can't, mommy. Like I have so much on my mind." Or when she saw something or watched something and that suddenly scared her, it was now going to keep her up. And I just, from the very, very beginning, I just like, no, we just turn it off. We're just going to turn it off. And then tomorrow you can pick it up again if you want. And then
Kids can learn this very easily.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I don't know where I got that from, but I just said, no, you're just going to turn it. I think it's probably because I thought, I need you to turn it off so that I can turn off.
So that I can get sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's cool. But it's stuff like that I say, it's got to be simple. There's so many simple things that can shift our lives. It's not a lot of work.
No.
And we delude ourselves into thinking it's got to be hard. No.
So is some of the work you do connected to neuroplasticity?
Yes, but I think so. But it's really about dissolving those connections. But again, in a very from the different side way. You don't go at it head on. You find a different angle that pulls the plug out from that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mystery.
Yeah.
It's
Like I am not a therapist. I'm a coach and
Yeah.
and such. There's a line between therapy and coaching, but I can help people shift patterns when they're stuck in a loop and can't, beating yourself up. Okay, what's creating that pattern? Let's pull the plug out from there. Then there's no path for it to go.
Yep.
Right.
See, now I have an image of like this oval path because I play the movies in my mind. So there's this oval path, oval path, oval path, oval path. And you're teaching skills that's creating a path off of that oval path. But the hard part is to get from that oval path to that other path. And that's what I call the point of divergence. How do you create a cue that will help that point of divergence become something solid so that you can get off the path?
Yeah. I can see that. The framework I go to is something that's actually used in corporate change. It's called Theory U, where if you are here and you want to go here, most people just go, okay, got to go there. And you wind up, all sorts of things go wrong, stuff you couldn't anticipate. And often you're dealing with the symptoms and not the real root cause. So it doesn't get solved. So Theory U it wasn't invented. This guy went around and studied hundreds of people who were effective at change. Is like instead of going here, imagine a U down here. And the U is about slowing it down. You go down this side of U that's called presencing. So in an organizational state, that's understanding other perspective, hearing everything else. So you're getting into the soup of all the perspectives.
Yeah.
For an individual, it's okay, what's motivating me? What's good? Then at the bottom of the U is what's called presencing, where you are sense into this whole, this is a complex system. And what's really going on. And that's when you go, oh my God, that's what the heck are we doing to ourselves? That's where the ahas. And then you come up the other side of the U to realizing, and that's they talk about it's about taking wise action instead of just taking action and trying to jump the U.
Yeah.
And that the jumping the U never works, especially in a world like we've got today. It's bonkers.
It sounds like there's a lot of self-awareness involved, because as soon as you start
Very
to
much
question,
so.
well, why am I doing this? You're like, wait a second. And that whole like thinking process does have you slowing down from what you were doing and taking that step back.
And
From
one of
that
the things,
space, yeah, you can create
Yeah.
better decisions.
totally. And one of the things we say when we're working with Theory U is we don't have time to do it quickly, right? Because there's always things that screw up that take longer.
Yes. Or we think, I find the biggest problem that I have is, and I know I'm not the only one, you think you have this problem when really the problem is over here.
Yeah. And that's
But
it.
you-
What's underneath?
Yeah. But you don't have the awareness of this yet until you start to get to this point. And once you get close, you're like, oh.
Or it's like, oh, crap,
Okay.
I was doing that.
But when you have somebody on the outside helping you see those perspectives,
Yeah.
you can just skip that journey over here and actually go more streamlined to where you want to be, even though you didn't know that existed yet.
Right. And, as you do this more and more of this work, you build your capacity to be able to step back and see that more. But there are always times like there's 2-3 close friends who I trust, who are coaches as well, that are on my speed dial. I've got a couple therapists when I need that. Look, I'm hitting a wall. I need help.
Yeah.
And I know when I can't get there. And so I've got those resources. I do an incredible amount of work on myself all the time.
Yeah.
But then there's often a time where it goes, oh, okay, I can't get through this. Use the lifeline.
Yeah. I mean, there's only so much that we can see about ourselves. It's our biggest blind spot. It's like, can you help me, Ravi? Like someone who sees other things. Yeah. I want to switch gears just a little bit into the different ways that you have decided to share your message.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know that there's the typical 3, like the speaking, the writing, and the podcasting. I know you speak because obviously I've seen you speak for years. Do you have a podcast?
I do. I just launched a new podcast.
Congratulations. What's it called?
It is called Soulgeneering Your Life and Work.
I had no idea. Right on par with your branding.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then do you write as well?
I do. I do articles and white papers. I'm working on a new book right now, and so I wait for when the inspiration comes.
Yes.
And there's something that's bubbling and starting to emerge now, which is really so I can be surprised as well by what comes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So here's the bigger question, though. Were you always really good at speaking and writing?
Oh
and
God, no. I used to be a physicist. Look, you saw Big Bang Theory. That is pretty darn accurate. Okay. I never watched it because I've lived that. I don't need that anymore. I think I was probably sort of like Leonard on that show, but I was terrified of talking to 2 people at once.
Oh.
I was so nervous. But what I've learned over time is that nervousness is just energy. And the difference is if we hold it in, it becomes nervousness and it paralyzes us. But if we use it to grab people, that's cool. So I've been doing this now 33 years. It's been since before that I was last nervous.
Aww.
I can get in front of 5,000 people. Cool. Let's rock and roll.
What inspired you to get out of the nervousness and to start grabbing people as you described it?
The universe shoved me into it.
Okay.
I wish I could say I planned this. Oh yeah, the nuclear physics taught me this and this. Universe takes you where you need to go, right? And I got involved. The first organization I was involved with, I got drafted very quickly into a team that we reinvented the whole company across the country. And that's where I discovered how organizational change and quantum physics and the complexity actually overlap and such. So that was a great training ground.
Yeah.
But that forced me into a facilitative role and so on. It also burned me out, even at a young age, because I was traveling across the country, loved it, and then I came back here to Nova Scotia and thought I'd reconnect with family, and I tried out teaching at universities. So guess what? I had to get in front of groups.
Oh, yes.
So between the corporate work and then the teaching, it was like, by that time it's like, okay, let's rock and roll. Let's have fun with this.
Do you mind me asking which university you were trying to teach at, or you were teaching at?
I wasn't trying.
That's why I was like, wait, let me rephrase. Yeah.
I've taught at most of the universities here. I taught at St. Mary's for a couple of years, at Acadia for a couple of years, Dal, the Mount.
Did you ever teach at St. X?
No.
I was like, because I went to St. X.
Okay. Yeah. No, I've taught in most of the business schools around here near Halifax and in Acadia.
So you would have taught business, not engineering.
Yeah. No, this was after my physics.
Okay.
Yeah.
I took engineering in university, but I didn't take business.
I have to say, as someone who's also currently a part-time professor, it is great training ground to build your capacity as a speaker, because you're speaking for basically 3 hours straight. And you have to engage them to show up. They have to choose to show up to listen to you and engage in the class.
Absolutely. It's about engagement.
Right.
And most of what I taught was not lecture. I taught in business with the case method. So it's about facilitating. And even my speaking, I will often be very facilitative in that process. So what are you teaching?
Oh, I teach financial planning and insurance and financial planning. And sometimes those students don't really want to be there.
Yes.
Right. But by the end of it, they say, I'm really glad that I came to your class.
Yeah. Aww. And that's the key to me is how do you engage them? You can blah, blah, blah all you want, but if they walk out with nothing, what's the point? I want them to walk out and retain things for their career.
Yeah.
So then how do you engage with the ways that you've decided to share your message? You pull people in and grab their attention.
Yeah, I mean, it's really about not speaking at them, but speaking with them. And even if you've got a large room of a few hundred, there are ways to engage them and pull them in. It can be through conversations they can have. You can use technology with things like Slido and Mentimeter and bring their perspectives in. There's all sorts of ways. Now, I'm a facilitator to a large extent, right? A lot of my work. I do a lot of organizational strategy development and culture change. But so it's very natural for me to do that. The best training, actually, and it applies to speaking, that I had facilitating. And I do that in my coaching. My coaching is all facilitative. I'm not giving any directions. It's about helping them realize. But the best training I ever got as a facilitator was improv.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, and
yeah.
Right. It's like you have to be able to respond to what's coming up. You can't be stuck in an agenda.
I think that's why I like this so much. I may not have the comedy side of improv, but with the musical theater and just the theater background, it's like, can you be in the moment, active listening, paying attention to all the things around you, and make things relevant? Because for me, I wasn't very good at memorizing the scripts.
Right.
But as soon as I understood what was going on, I could just in the moment make things up.
Right. And the thing is, I'm also an empath. So I'm reading the crowd. I'm feeling what's going on. And part of what feeds into that is, while I was a nuclear physicist, I was also DJing at a nightclub. and the way that a real DJ works, it's not about playing music. You feel the emotions of the crowds and you sculpt it by which song which you mix into which at what point by changing the pitch a few tenths of a percent. Now, instead of songs, I'm doing it with words. So I can feel how they're responding, and I can immediately, shift according to that if I feel a change in the audience. Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
Yeah.
I
And
never
it
knew.
takes Laura's word for this here is courage. I think that takes a lot of courage to trust in yourself, to pivot as you feel needed.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. When I started a couple of years into my career, a couple of times I'd put myself in a situation where I plopped myself in front of a group in an organization. I had no clue what the issue was. I had no clue even what the group was, but I had a day and I got them to resolution by the end of the day. I had to make it up as I got there. So it's not like going in and doing a situation analysis. I went in blind and I had to hear and then make it up and that was so amazing. I love that.
And yet you had a whole toolbox of experience though that you came into it with, right?
Yes, and I was trusting myself. It's all about trusting myself and trusting what's coming through me, trusting my intuition and the universe to guide me.
I think part of it is the expectation that we have to give them this nice, clean, finished end result in such and such a time. But if things didn't get to a place where things felt resolved by the end of whatever time you had with people, there could always be a phase of, we're going to think on this. We're going to come back. We're going to do a little survey, and I'm going to give you the results based on how people are feeling and the information from the survey.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be, we're just going to cut it off. No. That may have been an original expectation, but we can shift those expectations.
Right. And and even if I'm doing a keynote or whatever live, I will often tie it into some virtual follow-up. It makes a lot of sense to add value, that you can't expect 1 hour or 40 minutes to really shift things on an enduring way.
Yeah. Ooh, see, I love that you also give yourself that space to just say, we're super present right now. And whatever happens at the end of right now happens.
And we'll figure out what the next steps are. But it's built into the work, the contract, that we're going to do these follow-ups, but content to be determined. Good.
Ooh, okay. There's lots of questions I want to ask you about that, but that might be behind the scenes, out of interview kind of things. Because we're getting to the time where I want to ask you where we find you, and of course, your favorite way to communicate.
Well, my website is ravitangri.com. Very, very easy. My favorite way to communicate is I use, it depends. For the corporate stuff, probably more LinkedIn. And for the personal, I'm starting to lean towards Insta more.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to be ramping up.
And your podcast?
And the podcast. Yeah. But those appear on those, right? Those, yeah. Okay. The podcast. Absolutely. Yeah. So the podcast you can search for wherever you get your podcasts. The Soul Engineering Your Life and Work. I don't think there's any other soul engineering podcast, so that'll pop up.
Not that I know of.
Yeah. And then again, if people are serious about shutting off that thing, silenceselftalk.com and click on it, Laura.
When the show is over today, I'll say hello to my daughter, play video games, and before I make supper, I will click on it.
Okay.
I promise.
I don't know if it's a question, but it's just a thought that occurred to me when you talked about going to improv, right? Like just really throwing yourself into the unknown, right? And trusting yourself. One thing I noticed, I guess this one is all about, stories about my daughter, but I put her in an improv session and they did at the end kind of a performance, right? And what I noticed though was that as they were doing the improv activities, right, the phrases or the things that they were saying on the spot that just came out of them also gave me insight into their programming at home.
Yes.
And I think that there is this undervalued element of improv that if you realize what's the first thing that you would resort to saying, and then taking a moment to say, oh, that's interesting.
Yes.
Maybe I explore that.
Improv as a Rorschach test. Right? Really. And I get what you're saying, because the other part I bring into all of that I do is I'm a dancer, right? I do salsa, tango, the West Coast swing, a whole bunch. But when you...
I'm in.
Right? Huh?
I'm in.
All right.
Yeah.
And this summer we'll be dancing on the waterfront. Cannot wait. But when you're dancing with a partner, like they have their own rhythm, their own style, so you have to adapt to it, and then you start co-creating. Like even as a lead where I'm choreographing, that person has their own level, but also their own preferred style, how much they want to do styling, and blah blah blah. So you have to respect that and work with it. And it's the same thing with an audience. You're right. The filters come up where their programming is, and really it's a dance with the audience, whether it is virtual or whether it's in person.
I've never been on the waterfront dancing with you guys, but I went once, and I think that was the one day that it got canceled due to weather or something like that. I was like, I made all this effort. Didn't even think about it though. But I will have to join you this summer, because the waterfront is beautiful.
Oh, it's gorgeous with the moon up over the water. Oh, lovely.
Yeah. Okay. So with about the 2 minutes we have left, I like to hold space at the end of an interview, just in case there's something in your mind or on your heart that you want to share. So what would you love to leave people with?
We're in crazy times, really crazy times. It's so important to be able to create space for yourself, to step back, to breathe. For me, dance nourishes me, it heals me, but also beach walks. The water is so amazingly healing. Find those spaces, make the spaces. We say we don't have time. We have to make that time. Otherwise, it's a downward spiral into the cesspool of suck. So how can you create those spaces to nourish, to nurture yourself? Use the lifeline to connect with a friend if you're feeling overwhelmed. Be gentle on yourself.
I've been really wanting to do a beach walk, so I may have to just message you and say, I'm coming to the city, and then we should just go walk on the beach and see who else comes with us.
I want to ask you one quick question, which is, what's the advice that you would give to the students who are just getting into studying the sciences and the physics and the engineering, and because you know what that's like, and you know that environment? What would you tell them?
Wow, that's going back a long time. Yeah. Science is not about being arrogant about it all. There's a lot of scientists that dismiss a lot of the what's called woo-woo or whatever. A real scientist would say, I don't know. We don't have data. Don't dismiss stuff just because it doesn't fit in your paradigm. History is full of, like Galileo was excommunicated from the church for 400 years because he said the earth was not the center of the universe. Things change. What we think is true changes. Yeah. So don't lock yourself in. Be curious. A real scientist is about, let's explore. Let's find out. Let's see.
Starfleet.
Indeed.
I used to love Star Wars too. And Star Trek and like all of it.
Oh yeah, I'm a total Trekker.
Oh yes. So I'm going to call this the official close of our interview. I do invite you to stay for the next few minutes, just because I like to do a recap. It's great for social media. You're like, we talked about this. You should check out the whole thing.
I like it.
So
I might borrow that idea.
Sure. Well, and we have to be at a certain time because it's going on online TV. Yep. So I'm like, okay, this works. So Ravi, I'm going to start with you. What's something that stood out to you in our conversation today?
Well, I really loved Annie's example of what she did with her daughter. I think that is brilliant and so simple and so nurturing against the programming, the left brain programming of the world. It's simple stuff like that that I think makes a huge difference. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thank you.
And what about you, Annie? What's something that stood out to you?
Yeah, it's something you actually said earlier, Ravi, which is I choose joy.
Mm-hmm.
And I have this conversation with my daughter a lot because, kids get very pulled into social media and drama and, the things that are happening at school is their whole world. And there's moments where, she's complaining or she makes it sound like an absolute, like, oh my gosh, this is just, everything is like
the drama.
Right. And I tell her, that's your choice.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you choose in this moment? And so I really appreciated that simple but profound statement that you choose joy.
Thank you. That is my mantra, and that's my word for this year.
See, now we have 2 words for the year. Okay, Annie, what's your word for the year?
Love that.
Do you not have a word?
My word?
Yeah.
Oh, my word is launch this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So launch, joy, and courage.
You can launch courageously and with joy.
I was going to say
Yes,
courageously
absolutely.
launch joy. There we go. Okay, one thing that stood out to me was so many things. I'm going to look back through my notes. Well, the first thing that stood out was when you said, I choose joy, just to continue with that conversation. I remember one of the darkest times in my life. And it was hard just to brush my hair. Okay, that was my goal of the entire day, was to get up, get dressed, and just brush my hair. And then eventually it got to the point where I'm like, how do I get out of this? I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything. This is not helpful. And that was exactly the choice that I made, was to choose joy. Mm-hmm. So then every day was a challenge and adventure to figure out, well, what is something that brings me joy? Yes. Even if it's for a micro moment.
Yes.
Doesn't have to be the whole day. Just like this black pen, it's brand new. It writes so nicely. And that's it. Like just anything. So I could practice that feeling again.
Yeah. And sometimes there were times I went through challenging stuff. It's like there was no joy, but it's like, okay, which choice will lead to the joy?
Yeah. Even a general direction.
Yeah.
Yep. Because then that's creating that path towards something that I want. Exactly. Oh, well, this is such a delight. It always is, Ravi. You know I love you.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're welcome. I appreciate you. We're going to have to talk soon.
Okay. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye. Thanks, Ravi.
And we have our next guest in the background. Jenny, just give me a thumbs up if you're ready. Awesome. Okay, first question, though. Is it Jen or Jenny?
Well, my name is Jennie Milton. I'm from Australia, but they actually call me Adrenogen, like Adrenaline Jenny.
Okay, double checking. Because I'm like, Adrenogen? I was like, what is, okay, is that your actual name? Is that a nickname?
It's my nickname, and it's stuck about 30 years ago.
Wow.
I'm going to guess that's going to come up in conversation.
Yeah.
But I do like to start interviews just by shaking things up just a little bit, because I want to get to know you as a human being. You, Jen / Adrenogen, as a human being. Grab my notepad. So, Jen, if you could have other people describe you in 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
Laura, what a great question to start with.
Thanks.
I think that the 3 words that I would love people to describe me would be energetic, motivated, and courageous.
Ooh, you are my kind of person. Motivated and courageous. There we go. So, okay, the only other pre-scripted question is, how do those words, energetic, motivated, and courageous, how do they play a role in the key message that you have for people?
they play a huge role in the message that I speak about. I think energy is just so important in order to get up and enjoy every day. And for some reason, I can just jump out of bed. I'm coming to you live from Alaska. It's early in the morning. It's freezing cold, but I can just jump up without a cup of coffee and bring some energy to the conversation. And I think energy is something that we can really practice in order to be able to call upon every day, no matter what we're doing. And that then helps with the motivation. We all need that motivation in order to get out of bed, in order to achieve the goals and succeed in what we're trying to achieve in life. And it's so much easier if we have energy. So energy and motivation really go together. And courageous, that word is something that I think we all need. We all need to be a little more courageous. And it's something that I really didn't grow up with. I really classify myself as that scaredy cat at school that was scared of doing all the school sports. That was me. People see photos of me now on my social media skiing big mountains or kite surfing in the big waves, and they think, wow, she must have been born that way. But I wasn't. Courage is something that, again, we can practice and we can learn. And I'm so proud of myself that the courage that I learned as I improved in my extreme sports has also helped me in other situations in life, in relationships, in business, and recently some health issues. We all need courage to get through those tough times in life.
All I can say is a huge 100% yes. Courage has been one of the main things that's helped me through every time I get low, because it's not just the once. There's always more than one that happens, whether it's the big, really big dips or whether it's just the smaller dips. And we were just talking about words of the year and how my word of the year is courage.
Yeah, I heard that. I was like, yes, what a great word. Yeah.
So then I'm curious, what does courage mean to you? What does it look like to you?
Courage to me is the ingredient we need to overcome our fears. And fear is something that really holds us back in many areas of our life. But fear is something that is actually a natural reaction. It's something we can't get rid of. In fact, people call me fearless sometimes. And I'm like, no, I don't want to be fearless. We actually need fear. Fear keeps us safe in situations when things could go wrong. It keeps us on our toes, it keeps us observant. And so I don't want to be fearless, but we need to be able to overcome those fears, because our natural reaction to fear is to either flight, fight, or freeze. And those really come just naturally to us. And we need to learn how to actually feel those just for a second to remind us that, hey, this is a scary situation. But then we need to find courage. We need to find the courage to then overcome that fear and turn that natural response into the next step that takes us down the path. Because I really believe that fear can be a problem and courage can actually be the solution. And you know what? Confidence becomes the reward.
Oh, okay. Confidence becomes the reward, which is so true. Confidence becomes. I wish I could just write as fast as I can think.
Or as fast as an Aussie can talk.
Oh, I'm actually talking much slower than I would normally. For interviews, I'm like, I need to remember to slow down. No, I get excited and then it's like this.
Oh, good reminder to me. I was saying Australians, Aussies, we talk fast, and especially when I'm excited.
Yeah, so do East Coast Canadians. It's the same thing. Okay, so the confidence becomes the reward. So good. But what I want to know is, okay, you said about enjoying every day. Is that your core message, or is it a little more nuanced than that for you?
Well, enjoying every day, I think, is is my action that I really want to do in 24 and 25. In 2024, I had one of the scariest situations in my life. And boy, I have had some scary situations in my life. You can ask me about them in the interview if you like. I've been caught in an avalanche. I've been chased by a polar bear. But in 2024, I had something even scarier happen to me. And that was that I was diagnosed with brain aneurysms. And I had to have 3 brain surgeries last year, and that was the scariest time of my life. It's the first time that I really felt that life was short, and that I really didn't know how much life I had left to live. And for somebody who felt like a superhero when I'm doing my sports, it really was. It brought me back to the core of life, and that is that we really need to enjoy every day. And like Ravi said, find joy in the things that we do every day. Live every day like it could be your last. So if it happens to be your last, you are proud of the way that you've spent your last day, moments, or life in general.
Okay, so I'm guessing the adventures, based on what you just told us, were happening for longer than just all the brain surgeries last year. What got you into this message of enjoying every day? Like, how did this lead to a polar bear? Tell me more.
I need to put some of the pieces of the puzzle together. Well, I grew up in Australia, and my parents had a sports store from when I was born, and they sold ski gear in the wintertime. And then in the summertime, they would be selling the sports equipment of whatever was popular at the time. Now, some of you might be saying, what, skiing in Australia? Yes, we do have skiing in Australia. We have about 12 ski resorts, and I am so blessed. My brother and I, we grew up skiing from when we were 2 years old.
Aww.
And as we grew up, we were so blessed with being able to get into all of the latest and the greatest sports, and that came in: skateboarding, rollerblading, and skiing. My dad was a sailor, so in the summer times we would sail and we would windsurf. And what a blessed childhood I had to be able to be focused on doing all of these sports. But when my brother was 9 and I was 11, he came home one day from school, had a sore leg. He'd been playing football, and my dad was like, brush it off. And my mum played the mother and went up and felt his leg. And for some reason, mum's intuition told her that something wasn't quite right. And mum took Michael down to the hospital, and we were told the next day after some x-rays that he had cancer. And the cancer had actually eaten into the femur on his leg, and that we were going to have to go through the toughest time in our life. He was only given a small percentage chance of survival, but in order to make that chance the best that we could, he had to have chemotherapy, and he actually had to have his leg amputated. So at the age of 11 for me, this was the first time that I was exposed to, boy, life can be short and things go wrong. And it was a very traumatic time for me. I really didn't know how to process this as a young girl. And that led into years of depression, years of really shame, because I was craving my parents' approval and craving my parents' love, but I felt guilty because my brother really needed all that attention and all that love at that time. And this was a very, very difficult time for our whole family. And it's something that I write about now in my books, is that the siblings of the cancer sufferer also feel a huge loss. Maybe not the loss of a leg, but a loss in general. And that was the time when life was really tough, like you were talking about, Laura, that where you just can't get out of bed, you don't want to leave your room. All of a sudden, all those pieces of sports equipment sitting in my room that used to bring me joy were not bringing me joy anymore. I remember one day going skiing and crying on the chairlift and thinking, wow, I used to find so much joy in skiing, and it just wasn't bringing me joy anymore. And that was when I realized that depression had really taken over my life, and I really needed to find a way to get through that. And that was when I really, once I got over that sort of hiding the depression and being very very internalized and just not wanting to get out of bed, I realized that my brother had an illness and he was doing the best he can, and I considered depression as my illness, and I needed to work at that the best I could. And so I embraced therapy. I embraced learning cognitive techniques in order to turn my negatives into positives. And boy, I am so grateful to this day that I learned all of those tools in my teens and my 20s, that I'm still using those mindset tools today to find joy every day, no matter what goes wrong.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So more personal story times. I couldn't walk this time last year, and I went back to the gym. My only goal at the point of starting was just, can I be consistent? Because I'm not very good at being consistent, because depression and feeling like you're a burden and not having any semblance of self-care and all the stuff and things. You get it. I go back to the gym, and I remember working on doing squats again. And I was in a bicycle accident, so squats have always been an issue. Knees have been an issue since 2011. I get to the point where I'm not holding on to anything. There's no fear. I attempt my first all the way to the floor squat and then back up. And I did it after like a month and a half of training, maybe 2 months of training. And I'm standing in front of the mirror and I'm bawling. Not like the ugly kind of bawling, but like my face is a mess. And there's this guy on the bench beside me, and you can tell on his face, he's like, don't look, don't look, don't look, don't look. But in that moment, I was like, I am so happy for what looks like this much of an accomplishment to somebody else. But to me, it makes a world of difference. And when you're depressed like that, and when you feel like there's nothing, and what brings you joy, the smallest things feel like the biggest things. So I'm celebrating you because I know how hard that is.
Oh, Laura, thanks for sharing. And boy, I totally relate to that story. And thanks for sharing and understanding.
And now, just as you said before, the confidence becomes reward.
That's right. And what a great feeling it is to feel that confidence of being proud of ourselves for overcoming that challenge that we have. I call that the MacGyver mindset. And that's actually something that my brother and I developed, because I told you the sad part of the story, but the great part of the story is my brother survived, and he and I had to figure out how he could do all of the different sports that came into my parents' sports store with one leg. Now, at first, my parents kind of made him wear an artificial leg because they thought that was what you were supposed to do. But my brother hated wearing the artificial leg. It hurt. It made him walk funny. He felt more disabled wearing the prosthetic than he did cruising around on crutches, because when he cruised around on crutches, he was the best hopper and crutch user around, and he could do more. He was more agile. And so every time a sport came in, my brother and I would have to figure out in the back rooms of my parents' sports store how we could adapt the sports equipment, or how we could figure out how he could do the sport as well, so we could all do it as a family. One of the coolest ones was windsurfing. What he did was he went down to the leg factory and had the guy build a cast for his stump, and then Dad put a PVC pipe on it with a sanding disc on the bottom and made this waterproof leg that he could use to allow him to windsurf. And when he was learning to ski on one leg or rollerblade on one leg, I would do that with him. I would also ski on one leg and rollerblade on one leg. We would do everything together and try and figure it out. And that was how that MacGyver mindset came about, because when we have a challenge or something goes wrong, we have a problem, we can either get sucked into the negativity of that problem and really I think in America you call it whining, in Australia we call it whinging about the problem.
Yes.
If we can actually look at it as a challenge, and how can we figure out how to solve that problem, again, you build that confidence, and it just feels so fantastic to be a problem solver rather than the problem finder.
I have to ask, because I don't know you, Adrena Jen, and we've never met, and I don't know all the details of your story, but I'm already thinking that what you were able to create for your brother and adapt, the sports equipment for your brother, did that end up becoming a bigger thing where you were actually able to help others who were, disabled or had limbs amputated for whatever reason, but still wanted to live life and do sports?
Yes. Well, hi, Annie. It's wonderful to meet you. And thanks so much for chatting with me today. I can't wait to share more with you, and also get to know you as well. And what a great question. And that's so true. I think that although that was a terrible thing to happen for my brother to lose his leg, it has actually created so many positives, not just for our lives as we've grown up, but for others as well. And I'll share an amazing story with you. My dad, as my brother got into skiing, my dad decided he would start the Australian Disabled Skiers Federation, and he would raise money to get sporting equipment for people with disabilities. And it's amazing. Anybody can go skiing, and going skiing just brings us so much joy and so much freedom, especially for people who maybe can't walk. They can still go in a sit ski and get that freedom of speed, the wind in their face, and cruising down a mountain really is such a unique feeling that we don't get many places, really. And so over the years, I've spent a lot of time with different disabilities. And in fact, my best friend Paul worked for disabled skiers, and he became one of the best sit ski drivers around. And what that means, if somebody has, say, a mental disability that can't use their limbs, or maybe somebody's a quadriplegic, their legs and arms aren't working, they can go in a sit ski, which is like a kind of like a wheelchair with a ski underneath, and you need somebody to drive it. So you need a team member. And Paul does all the driving of these sit skis. And he got really good at it. Being a mountain bike rider, he could really drive that sit ski like riding a bike, and he loved going fast. And he'd always say, "Do you want to go faster?" And these people would say yes, and he would go faster, and they would go over jumps. And he was incredible. Now, one day I was a backcountry guide at Thredbo Ski Resort, and I met up with Paul at lunchtime, and he had this incredible woman that I got to know. Her name's SJ, and she was a quadriplegic, and Paul was driving around, and she had a big smile on her face, and she shared her story that she was actually, a big mountain skier like me. She dreamt of going to Alaska, but unfortunately she'd gone in for an operation on her neck, and she had woken up a quadriplegic. And that was just devastating to her. She had, and I think it was about an 8-year-old son at the time, and she was just, so so stressed about could she be a good mother when she had lost the use of her body. And I shared my story that I'd been going up to Alaska for about 15 years at that time and skiing these big mountains, and I could just see the longing in her eyes that that was what she wanted to do. And she said, Jennie, I always wanted to go skiing in Alaska. And I said, well, why don't we do it? Why don't you come skiing with me? And she's like, what? And I go, we can totally make that happen. To me, that MacGyver mindset came in, and I'm like, okay, logistics. I love logistics. Let's figure this out. So if you came to Alaska and you brought Paul with you, and we rented you an RV that had the flap at the back so you could drive your wheelchair up there, we could go heli skiing. And my husband works for the heli skiing operation. We can figure out how to put your sit ski in the helicopter and you can go heli skiing. And I just saw her eyes and her brain light up that she had thought that that was never going to happen in her life, that dream was dead. And I brought that MacGyver mindset to the table, and I just saw her eyes start to sparkle. And it took us 2 years to figure it out. But 2 years later, SJ came to Alaska with her 10-year-old son and took her 10-year-old son heli skiing. I mean, what mother does that? What a great mum to do that. And it was just bringing me goosebumps just thinking about it, because to see her face hugging her son in the helicopter and for them to make a dream come true was just incredible. And I'm so grateful that I was able to bring that MacGyver mindset to the table in this situation, and to see her have a dream come true was just unbelievable. I'm so happy for them.
I love
Aw. Yeah, my cheeks are hurting again because I'm like, oh my God, I love stories like this. It's so good. So then is this a big chunk of what you do now? Is a lot of, I want to say, touring, guiding around the sports, or do you do other things as well?
Well, being a mountain girl and loving to ski, Australia has the opposite winter. And so it's very common for people who are like ski instructors or guides to work in Australia in the winter time, which is like June to October. And then we come to North America and you have winter again. And so if we love to ski, we can actually ski all year round. And so for about 18 years, I did back-to-back winters from one side of the hemisphere to the other. And on my first ever dream trip to Alaska, I mean, that was my dream come true. As a skier, we always see these movies on the big screen, and I remember that day so well. I had my own sports store at that stage. My parents had a Canberra ski centre, and then when snowboards had come in and all of these sort of more younger people's sports, we decided to separate them, and I started my own store called Adrenaline Sports. That's part of the reason why I got that nickname, Adrena-Jen.
Yeah.
And I was standing there with all of my staff. I had a bunch of, cool skateboarders and snowboarders working for me. And we were taking a bit of a lunch break and we were watching this movie on the big screen and seeing people going heli skiing and riding down in this powder snow and the snow flying everywhere. And the words, I'm sure we were all thinking it, but the words actually came out of my mouth. I said, I'm going to do that one day. And they all looked at me and sort of went, yeah, right, Jen, sure, and that was all I needed, a challenge. They had challenged me to think that I couldn't do that. And I like to be that type of person that if I say I'm going to do something, I really want to do it, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to make it happen. And so I was over in the States for a trade show in Vegas where you get introduced to all the new sports products, and a bunch of ski industry folks were going up to Alaska to go heli skiing. and I jumped in with them, and I ended up being the only girl. There was 9 men and myself, and they were all skiers, and I was a snowboarder. And for those of you who don't know, skiers and snowboarders aren't supposed to get along, right? And so when we got up to the heli ski operation, I didn't realize this, but they'd gone up to the organizer and said, well, she's with us, but we don't really want to ride with her. We want to ride with skiers. And so I got put into a group of people that I didn't know. And I remember getting into that helicopter for the very first time, and we took off, and boy, my adrenaline started rising, and we were flying around these mountains, and the helicopter landed on top of this amazing, majestic peak, just like in the movies. It was seriously very surreal that all of a sudden I was in that movie that I'd seen on the screen. And we landed on top, and I was so excited. And then I watched the helicopter fly away, and the realization came in that, oh my goodness, I now have to snowboard down this mountain. I like to say, be careful what we wish for, because it might just happen. And was I prepared for something like this? Now, this was one of the most exciting times of my life, but also the scariest thing I'd ever done in my life up to this point. And Jerry, the guide, we all had radios, and he said, I'm going to drop in first, and then when I get to the bottom, I'll call you, and then I'll count you in. And so he dropped in, and I never saw him again. And then the next guy dropped in, and it was so steep you couldn't even see them. And then finally I heard on the radio, okay, Jen, your turn. And I had my snowboard on, and I went close to the edge, and this was the steepest, biggest mountain I'd ever ridden in my whole life. And I was so scared, and I wanted to run away so bad, but there was no way to run away. I'm on top of a mountain. The helicopter's gone. And so I think that ended up being a good thing, because I had no choice but to find that inner courage, that remembrance that this was something I really wanted to do. And I took 3 deep breaths, and I heard Jerry on the radio, okay, Jenny, dropping in 3, 2, 1. And so somebody counted me in, and I knew there were people behind me. I couldn't freeze and chicken out. And I dropped in. I just took another deep breath and dropped into this mountain. And I remember doing a couple of turns, and the snow flying over my head, just like in the movie. And then all of a sudden I went over the handlebars, and I was tumbling. It was seriously what I thought was the worst case scenario. I was tumbling, and the next thing I know, I landed back on my board. Thank you, God, universe. Something ended up, if I'd had skis on, the skis would have come off and gone flying, but on a snowboard, that snowboard is attached to your feet. And I ended up just in this tumble, ending up back on my feet and riding out and going, oh, okay, I'm okay. And I kept riding all the way down to the bottom. And as I got down the bottom, they were all cheering. I don't know if they thought that was one of my tricks, or whether they realized it was actually a crash. But I got down there, and I just burst into tears. Laura, just like you at the gym, the emotion of achieving something that just seemed like an impossible dream, a challenge that I didn't know if I would be able to overcome, and to have found my courage. Boy, it just felt amazing. And they weren't tears of fear or tears of sadness. They were tears of joy and tears of being proud of myself. It was absolutely amazing. And then, of course, the helicopter came and picked us up, and we did it again and again and again. And I realized that if I could keep overcoming my fears and finding that courage, by the end of that first day, I think I was taller. I think my posture was better. I had so much confidence, because I was that snowboarder who had now ridden big mountains in Alaska, just like in that movie.
There's a saying that says the only place to go now is up. But in your case, the only way to go is down.
That's right. We all talk about taking it step by step to get to the summit, which is our goal, and then everything's downhill from there. But for a skier, that's the best part. That's the best part.
Yeah.
So, Jen, I want to ask you about the different ways that you have chosen to share your message. So, obviously, you're doing podcasting because you're here with us right now. Do you usually speak on a stage, or do you write in books or anything?
Well, speaking is something that I've always done as an instructor and a coach. I remember I was a ski instructor at the age of 14 and having to stand in front of a class of 14 people and teach them how to ski was also teaching myself how to speak and how to communicate. And if I spoke to one person they didn't quite understand, I'd have to come up with another way of saying it. So speaking has been part of my life. I also watched my brother. After he lost his leg, he learned to ski. He actually became the best one-legged skier in the world. He has gold medals in the Paralympics. He is in the Guinness World Book of Records. He holds the world speed skiing record. If you can't tell, I am so proud of my brother, and he is my biggest inspiration. So as he pushed on with his goals and they got bigger, it meant that my goals also had to become bigger as well. And I watched him speak on stages, and he has been an incredible motivational speaker and had the chance to, fly to Hong Kong and speak in front of the Nike sales crew and things like that. And so it was something that I had always seen him do, but never felt that my story was worthy, was never big enough. And I think that was still some of that self-doubt that came from those years of depression. But last year when I went through my brain surgery, I had that aha moment, that clarity that I'd never had before. I was in ICU and I'd just woken up after my first brain surgery, and I was just so grateful to be alive. I couldn't believe it. I've woken up, I'm alive, and I knew that I still had more surgeries to come, but this was the first step. And I've been doing a lot of mindset training, and I do enjoy listening to Tony Robbins. He definitely he gives me that energy. He's the one that promotes having energy and really believing in ourselves. And he had said something in some training, and it just kept going round and round in my head. And it was a question that he asked us. He said, "Is there more knowledge in a graveyard or in a library?"
Graveyard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I that was my answer too. There's more knowledge that is taken to the graveyard. And at that moment in ICU, when I felt like I was so grateful to be alive and that I had been saved for a reason, and that if my life was going to be cut shorter than I thought it would, this was my chance. I needed to share my stories. I mean, I have some incredible stories. I've been on some incredible adventures, and it would be wrong of me not to share them, because I really believe that those stories can inspire people. They can help people. And at that point, I said, what am I going to do? How am I going to share my stories? And I decided that I would write a book. That was when I decided I would write a book. And rather than focusing on my belief that I wasn't intelligent enough or didn't get an A in English when I was at school, I said, I'm going to write a children's book. I can definitely write a children's book. I love graphics and illustrations. I'm going to work with an illustrator, and I'm going to tell my story. And I have in the past 12 months, I've had my first children's book published. My second children's book is at the Formatter. I'm actually co-authoring a chapter in 2 different books. I decided that I really wanted to stand on a stage like my brother and give my keynote speak and really motivate and inspire others and give them hope that they can believe that anything is possible. But just like in my sports, I know that we have to train. We need to go to the gym. So how am I going to practice and train to become a great speaker? Podcast. What the podcast became my gym. And I'm so proud that I've actually been a guest on over 50 podcasts in the last 12 months. So I didn't just talk about it, I did it, I dived in. And every podcast that I do, I believe that I'm getting my speaking reps up in order to get better at sharing my stories.
That is awesome. We're at the point now where I want to know, how do we find you? And of course, your favorite way to communicate.
You can find me at Adrenogen. You can find me. I have Adrenogen on Facebook. I have Adrenogen on Instagram. I have a website, adrenogen.com. And you can also find me under my real name, Jennie Milton. I actually did a Google search on myself. My self-confidence must be coming up because I Googled Jennie Milton the other day, and boy, did it make me feel good to see a list of all the different podcasts that I've been on, all of the different television shows, the books I've written. I actually saw that my children's book had been picked up by Barnes and Noble when I did that search, and that just made me feel absolutely fantastic. So you can find me out there, and I hope that you'll reach out. Please, everybody that's listening, reach out, come and say hi, and I would love to hear your story too.
I just Googled myself.
Good job,
Laura.
Good job.
I also want to ask, I love your hat. We haven't talked about it, but on the inside of the bell, it says "Live Lucky."
Was that what it says?
Yes.
It says "Live Lucky." Yes.
And it's got the 4-leaf clover.
Uh-huh.
And is that something we get through you?
No, this is actually a hat that I bought that after, again, my brain surgeries, and I had a mantra that I was using, that I created, that I just chanted over and over again. And when I was coming up with this mantra, I remember speaking with my mom and my grandmother. My grandmother turned 100, by the way, and I dedicated my children's book to her. What do you get to a grandma who's turning 100? What's no present idea that my mum and I came up with seemed big enough. But when I came up with the idea of dedicating the book to her, that was just such a great idea and blessing. But she reminded me, she said, "Jennie, you are lucky. You are lucky." And that was part of my mantra, and I'll share it with you. It was, I be brave, I be strong, I be loved, I be lucky, I be grateful, I am the storm.
Ooh.
And that was something that I said over and over again as I was going into my surgeries, and it really helped me believe that I was brave enough and strong enough to get over that, and that my grandmother reminded me I'm lucky. And so when I saw this hat for sale, Tony Robbins actually commissions this company to make hats for him, and he, under his hat, it says "Be blessed." And I got the one that says "Live Lucky," and I just love it. Thanks for asking about it, Annie.
Oh, I just figured out what my hat's going to say. I love that. I love that.
Nice. So I just want to take this moment to say thank you so much, Jen/Adrenogen, for being here with us. I'm going to call this the official close of your interview. I do invite you to stay for the next few minutes, just because I like to do a little bit of a recap, share some of our favorite insights, which is great for sharing on social media. So I'm actually going to start with Annie this time. Annie, what's something that stood out to you during our conversation today?
I think between what you've shared and the hat we were just talking about, and actually even the previous guest that we had today, what comes to mind is that you get to choose how you live.
Yeah.
And you get to define what that means for you. And I'm very inspired by what you chose, Jennie, for your life. And especially that you wrote I have a daughter, so the fact that you wrote a children's book, I'd love to know what the title is. Do you have it there? Oh, I love that. Gail and the Red Kite of Courage. Hello.
I think I saw that cover before.
What does it say? The Power of Wind?
The Power of Wind and Friendship. And this children's book is the true story of my brother and I, and it talks about how I felt when he lost his leg to cancer. And there's the illustration of me in my bedroom being sad with all of my sports equipment lying on the floor, just as I mentioned to you earlier. And it talks about how my brother actually gave me a kite and for my birthday, and I was a bit nervous. I was scared of the wind back then, and I was nervous that I wouldn't be able to do it, but my dad was the sailor, and he took me out and he showed me how to fly a kite, and that was the encouragement I needed to go outside and to fly this kite. And it brought me so much joy, and it gave me courage, and then I felt that confidence, and so I ended up becoming best friends with the wind. And that's a true story. During my life, I've become a professional kite surfer and snow kiter. That's where we use kites to tow us up mountains. So I'm a professional kite flyer to this day, and this story really tells that true story of my life, and encourages kids to get out there and fly a kite. All of the proceeds from this book actually are raising money for a children's charity in Australia called Red Kite, and that children's charity helps families. It helps not just the kid with cancer, but the siblings as well, the kids that were like me, which is amazing. In the back of the book, I give some facts about wind and kites to give them some education. And there's also a QR code in there that takes you to a video of me teaching you how to make your own kite. And I've been going to schools and to libraries, and I've been teaching kids to make their own kites, and seeing kids just find that joy like I did. I'll share just a quick story with you that last year I taught over 200 kids to make kites at this school. And one day after my lesson, I was in the supermarket, and a lady walked up to me and she said, "Are you the girl that taught the kids to make kites today?" And I said, "Yes." She's like, "I've got to tell you a story. I've picked up my daughter from school every day this week, and she has been in tears. She's having a really tough time in life. But today I picked her up, and she ran up to the car flying a kite with the biggest smile on her face, saying, 'Mommy, Mommy, I made a kite.'" And boy, that story just made me realize how powerful something as simple as a kite can be. It can change somebody's life, and it can bring them so much joy.
I love that. And the wind you can look at the wind as resistance, like, oh, it's okay, it's pushing me back, or it can be your wings of flight.
It really can. The wind is definitely my best friend, and I go outside and I play with the wind as much as I can.
Nice.
Love it.
So Jen, we have about 60 seconds or so. What's something that stood out to you during our conversation today?
I love chatting with you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful, and I hope that that you and also the audience enjoyed and took something away from this chat. Laura, I really loved that you shared some of your story with me as well, and it really made me realize that my story is not so unique. Maybe the polar bears and the helicopter skiing is, but we all really do feel those tough times in life, and we all feel fear, and we all have challenges in life, and I really hope that everybody can find their courage and their confidence in order to live their best life.
Oh, I love that. And thank you. I mean, everything that I do in my work is to help people understand the emotions behind the things that happen to them. Because when I share stories, I try to share stories with the same emotion, but a different type of thing that happened. Because that's how we connect as human beings. So I'm like,
That's great.
Yeah, I appreciate when people are vulnerable, because then I can make sure that when I'm adding that value, that it's of the same emotional value. Because then it moves the whole conversation forward into what emotion we want to feel. So if you're wanting people to feel joy every day and to enjoy every day, then that equal and opposite of the negative emotions, like how do you call that out through your stories? And that's what this is all about. So thank you so much, Jen, for being here. I appreciate you so much.
Thanks so much for having me. Thanks, Annie. Thanks, Laura.
Annie.
Bye.
Bye.
And we have our next guest in the background. It's like every day, just go, 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 go. I love it. At the same time, my cheeks hurt. Connie, just give me a thumbs up if you're ready to join us. Awesome. Hi, Connie. Welcome to the stage.
Hello, it's great to be here.
I need to massage my
Hi,
cheeks.
Connie.
It's like I want to stand, I want to walk around, I want to like massage all the cheeks and drink all the water. Okay, let's just shake it off. It's all good.
Shake it off.
Connie, I like to start every interview just by shaking things up. We'll do the physical thing with it this time. We'll shake it up because I want to get to know Connie. Who is Connie? So I have a question that's specifically meant to make you think a little and to tell us a whole bunch about who you are before you tell us who you are.
Okay.
So here's my question, Connie. I think you already know the not so secret question. If you could have other people describe you in 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
Warm, vibrant, and inspiring.
Warm, vibrant, and inspiring. Cool. So then the only other scripted question is, how do those words, warm, vibrant, and inspiring, how do they play a role in the key message that you have for people?
In my role as a life celebrant, I walk alongside families who have lost loved ones. And through their loss, when I meet with the family, we design a beautiful and meaningful celebration of life or memorial service. And as I'm gathering stories so that I can learn about their loved one, I hear so many incredible stories in life. And that way I get to weave their qualities and their essence into the service that I write and officiate. So I actually get to bring their story to life, and it helps heal the hearts that are so hurt and missing that person. That's where my warmth comes in. I'm that warm light that guides them through a really difficult journey. I'm that warm heart that supports them when their hearts are so hurt. Now, from that, I actually realized that when I was gathering all those great stories, I also kept hearing of regrets. Mom really wanted to do this, but she waited for someday. She waited until she retired so that she could do her travels. But we never know what every day is going to be. We don't know how many sunrises we're going to be seeing. And our some days are often diminished before we have a chance to fulfill dreams. And then it really got me thinking, Laura and Annie, are we playing small? And yes, I think we are, because we go through life day to day to day, and often it's on repeat. But are we really connecting to that little girl and that little boy inside of us that still has dreams and aspirations? No, it's tucked away and we're waiting for someday. And when I look at the calendar, I see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all the way through Sunday, but I haven't seen a calendar that has some date on it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so what are we waiting for when that someday doesn't even exist in printed form? And so I became a joy facilitator so that I could then guide you back to those dreams, those inspirations, that little store that's lying inside full of dreams and wishes. I help guide you back to living life fully. So when life feels as though it's at a crossroads, if you're an empty nester and you're no longer knowing what your purpose is, or if you've lost someone close to you and you don't have someone to care for, or perhaps you've lost a job, right? And you've lost that piece of you. I've had a health journey, for instance, and I lost a big part of me, only to realize that today I'm now my best me. And so I want people to live fully, living every day, collecting beautiful moments.
Aww. Okay, but now I want to know if that health journey was the reason why you got into the life celebration and being a joy facilitator. Or was there something else that inspired you to take this path?
I actually had been at a celebration of life many years ago and heard a life celebrant for the first time. And she captured the person's story so beautifully that I felt as though she were family. And yet I couldn't figure out how come we haven't seen this person. And I thought, you know what? We all have a beautiful story, and are we sharing it? Are we sharing it when we're living? And are we sharing it at the end of life, celebrating as we remember, honor, and celebrate? And so it planted a seed in my head, and I tucked it away for someday, truth be told. I really did.
Of course.
When my kids get older, when I da-da-da, right? And then I had a health experience that diminished what I was able to do in my career at that time. I couldn't return back to the role that I thought that I would continue on until I was retired and I was going to leave my footprint on this earth in that realm. I had to really rediscover myself, and I had to go really deep. And I think it is my personal journey that really has placed me to be the best person I am now, so that I am that warmth, the compassion that is needed, that guiding light. But I'm also that inspiration and that hope for sharing with people that life doesn't have to hold us back. We can embrace life wherever we are, and that there's really great moments to celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So many moments. And I know that even the everyday can be difficult to take those small moments, or even the big moments. The big moments are much easier, but even the small moments, to just celebrate them as they show up, to remind ourselves that celebrating helps us to own it, helps us to feel it, helps us to move on from it, to build from it, all of the above.
Mm-hmm.
And no, go ahead.
Obstacles. I used to call them obstacles. And
yeah.
Now they're just opportunities for growth. And every day we have what people call obstacles, right? Little roadblocks, or perhaps, crossroads that take us to a place and we don't know where to go. Mm-hmm. I always feel that our words really impact us. So if we use positive words, it changes our mindset and it changes our energy. And so obstacles for me are opportunities for growth. And I have those every day. I absolutely do. And yay, because now I know where I can grow and move. And fear is no longer a scary word. When we feel fear and that anxiousness, that's just an opportunity for us to now pick which road do we want to go and how do we want to rise. There isn't a wrong path. Fear actually gets us to our heart, so that we're really following our intuition and making incredible decisions, right? Opportunities for growth.
Blown away how all the speakers today have this continuity thread. It just, I don't know if you heard the previous speakers, Connie, but there was bits and pieces that so connect to what you're saying right now. Mm-hmm. And I so resonate with the health experience, with the fear, with finding the learning opportunities. And I had a moment this weekend, and my daughter happened to walk across the living room, and I said, I'm so grateful. And I was talking about something that she knew I was really upset about. So she kind of had this look like, what? Mm-hmm. And I finished what I needed to say. And she goes, oh, okay. I said, yeah, because I need to find the silver lining here. I cannot poison myself with this anger. I need to find what is it that this opportunity is giving me.
Yeah. Words so true. Words so true. So I love my role as a life celebrant, and I love my role as a joy facilitator. because through both realms, not only am I remembering, honoring, and celebrating a life lived and highlighting your story, as a joy facilitator, we now get to create the rest of our life story. What do you want your chapters to look like, right? They can be fun and exciting. They could be romantic. They can be just soulful journeys, right? We get to design what the rest of our life looks like, right? So let's create amazing chapters in our life so that we can say, life looks good on me.
I like that. Okay.
Woo-hoo.
I want to know, okay, you joy facilitator. We're going to get conceptual here. Connie, if you could snap your fingers, rub a genie in a lamp, like that kind of just light switch off and on, it happens, no prep. What would bring you so much joy that you would just wish for?
Everyone just showing kindness to one another. Instead of being isolated and only looking after ourselves, kindness is extending a smile, making that connection that way, opening a door for someone. It's hearts connecting. That's what brings me joy. Mm-hmm.
And it's a choice.
Mm-hmm. It is. Yeah. And smiles are free. They're the easiest gift to give. And aren't they the best gift to receive when someone's smiling at you? It changes your whole moment.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things to do is I'll find the people on the street, and especially if they're not smiling, I will find something about them to give them a genuine compliment. And that just because I'm like, I want to spread kindness, and whether they smile or not is not the point, but just that inner feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, oh man, that hat looks amazing on you. And then all of a sudden, most of the time they smile, and I was like, oh, look what I did. There you go. Have a wonderful day. Like, spread it to somebody else. It just makes me feel so good. But the key is that it has to be genuine.
Yeah.
If I can't find anything genuine about somebody, I don't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's about that energy exchange. And if I don't have that energy to exchange, they're not going to feel it. They can't exchange it with somebody else. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right?
And you're right. We need to be genuine and authentic. And even if I can't think of something really quick, I'll always smile and just say, good morning, hello, have a great day, right? And it's our smiles and our words that are like a magic wand. So let's sprinkle some magic through the world. Doesn't take a whole lot.
Yeah. Last time I went to Boston to do a Blue Talks at Harvard, and I had a friend of mine who I met online. Yay, all of these online events. She's like, you could stay at our house. So she toured me around Boston, and I'm like, one of my favorite things to do is to talk to strangers. So she's like, okay. And then we would find strangers to talk to. And then we would take pictures of the strangers that we talked to with their permission. And then we created a collage of all of the strangers that we talked to. And this was, you can't take a picture of a stranger that you only talk to for 5 minutes. It has to be like 15 minutes or more. I think I had 8 or 9 pictures of strangers. And she's like, nobody does this around here. She's like, I like you being here. I was like, I like you touring me around because I don't know where I'm going.
That's incredible. Wow.
The amount of depth and like every single conversation got deep. Every single conversation, that the energy of the person just expanded so much. You're like, oh, wow, I didn't know you were that beautiful on the inside. You were just somebody that I would have normally walked by, but instead I chose to say hello.
What a gift.
And be curious.
And and the stories, just like you were saying, Connie, like the stories are wonderful, and you learn so much about a person. That's just so good. So good. I want to do it everywhere I go now.
I think I get a kick out of, because I also like to just walk around my day with a pep in my step and just say hi to people that I'm passing on the sidewalk. And I always get a kick out of when I'm passing someone, I'm like, hi, morning, and I have a dog, so I go for walks. And it always I get a little kick out of somebody kind of giving that look like, what? Like, what? And then saying, oh, okay. Meanwhile, I've already passed them by. I'm like, oh, that was cool.
Yeah. They're like, wait, you're not on your phone? You're not ignoring me? You're not being rude to me? What? This is humanness.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it just changes the way they keep walking.
That's exactly it. And you didn't let life just pass you by. You seize that moment. And that's what's so important, right?
I wonder if this connects with how people describe some of their regrets in life. Can you tell us about some common patterns that you see when people tell you about what they may have regretted?
Quite often it's a variety of things, actually. For some, it's, I wish I would have gone back to school and got this education, or at least taken some classes. I wish I would have traveled or traveled more, because some people have not even left where they live. For others, they wish that they could have made amends with family members, right? So a lot of unfulfilled dreams and wishes. And sometimes we leave with very sad hearts, especially when we haven't had a chance to connect with family. Or one thing that really stood out for me is I have monthly gatherings at my house, and it's a gathering of family and friends, and we get together every month, and we just do a potluck, and we change the theme every month so that there's always something different happening. And it's such a great way to connect with people and just stay in touch. And sometimes we will decline an invitation to go out somewhere, and sometimes that would have been the last moment you would have had with that person.
Oh, yeah.
So missed opportunities. And so it's not only the regrets of those who have left this earth, it's the regrets of those who are left behind. And that's where I thought, you know what, we really do need to live every day to the fullest, to whatever that means to us, because it doesn't have to be skyrockets and taking a trip to the moon. Sometimes it could be living life to the fullest means I'm just going to dedicate time for me and go for daily walks and just get connected to nature and have those quiet, soulful moments. So joy can happen in so many different ways. And it makes my heart sad to hear some of these stories. And yet there's such beautiful and profound messages where I feel as though Spirit is entrusting me to say, this is a wake-up call. Can you please tell my family, don't wait for tomorrow, don't wait for someday, just live for today. And I really feel that that's my purpose here, is not only to share people's life stories, but I'm here to change your life in the most beautiful way, because life really is beautiful. Yeah.
I'm a crier. But
so I wish you wouldn't start.
I was wondering when this was going to happen.
I know. That's why I keep the Kleenex now. Most of it. No, you were reminding me about, because you were talking about regrets, but then not just regrets of the dying, but regrets of the people who are left. And one of the regrets that both me and my husband have is a good friend of ours died 3 years ago now. And we wanted to visit him, but at the same time, my husband was like, I can't see my friend like that on his deathbed in the hospital. I can't. And then I finally convinced him, you really should. We should go. Let's just go. Please put your coat on and shoes on and let's just go. We get our coat on. We get our shoes on. Then we get a text saying that our friend passed.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Wow. So then next time we had somebody that we knew on their deathbed, he's like, I don't like that being my last memory, but I don't like what happened with a good friend, where I didn't even get to say goodbye.
Mm,
And he went to the hospital, and we
wow.
saw a family who was on their deathbed. And he's now grateful that he did do something that was uncomfortable.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
We also miss
And
her.
you know, when yes. Oh my goodness.
All right,
Yes.
then.
And you always do. Always do, right?
Yeah.
And so that's such a profound message, Laura, because we really do need to embrace every moment, even the uncomfortable ones.
Yeah.
Whether we're walking through shadows, or whether we're walking through bright blue skies and sunshine, right?
Mm.
We need to embrace every moment. And so that's why it's so important for me as a joy facilitator or a joy guide to help shake us up. So just as we started our session this morning with a shake me up, I'm here to shake you up so that,
Yeah.
you know what? Let's not live life same old, same old. In fact, I love walking along retired living communities because here's what I tell them. Let's take the tired out of retired. Let's toss that away.
Oh,
And
yeah.
let's change that to reignite and re-inspired, right? Because no matter what age we're at, there isn't an off switch. Hello, these are encore years. Let's amp it up. You still have a story. And what do you want your chapters to be? And you've got all that wealth of knowledge and experience. Let's share you with the world, right? And so I really encourage people to have that why not attitude. And I have to say that as grown-ups, we often think that we don't have dreams. And so for me as a joy guide, it's not always easy to connect you to your dreams because you think, oh, no, life is good. You know, I've already done my thing. But you know what? We always still have something. And when people tell me, no, I don't have any dreams, maybe that's too broad for them. So I take them to today. Okay, what would you like your afternoon to look like? You get to choose. Oh, okay. So what would you like to do in the afternoon? Instead of the plans that you have, if you could change one thing, what would you like to do that would be different? And then all of a sudden they start connecting. And in my sessions, they're called Your Light Within, and it's an online journey that I take you on. It really does connect you to that little dreamer inside of you. I connect you to that light. And I do a guided meditation so that I'm actually connecting you to your future self. So for those who can dream big and down the road, I say, what do you envision in the next 6 months or in the next year? And we really, through guided meditation, go into the feelings, who's there with you, what are you doing, what are you wearing? And I actually get you to step into that new you so that you're feeling all of that energy. And so that way you've already created that vision and those ripples, but not everybody remembers how to dream. And they go, well, I've never meditated before, so I don't think I can do this. So I start really simple and I just say, close your eyes and envision, what does your front door look like? And they can do that. I go, there you go. You're a dreamer. You can create the vision. I love it. So now let's close your eyes and envision what your next 24 hours looks like. And how does that feel? Who's with you? Who's celebrating with you? Do you hear laughter? Are you outside? Are you connected to nature? Do you feel that gentle breeze on your face? Right? And so I connect you to that you, that beautiful you inside. And we keep moving from there on. That, and then we journal so that you're anchoring those beautiful thoughts and that energy so that they're not forgotten, because there's a lot of power when you put pen to paper. And so journaling in our daily journal is super important because this is where you envision, what do I want my tomorrow to look like? And how does it feel after I did that guided meditation? Yeah, it usually feels really good. And you want more of that. So I go, yes, please, more, please. And let's create that life that you're so desiring.
I've got to show you. Normally we have like little journals, right? But I went into the dollar store and I saw this beauty, and it's big, and it says imagine.
Oh my God, Addie, I love it.
So, and they're not lined. And for the first time, I gave myself permission to color, draw, write, not be structured, like just follow the flow. There's no rules. And every time I look at it, and it's also the colors of my website. So I'm like, this is perfect. But every time I look, I was like, yeah, I get to imagine.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, Dollar Store.
I love that. I love that. And I love what you shared, Annie, that you are allowing yourself to create in any way. I had a client who did not want to put words on paper. She didn't know how to articulate it, and she wasn't sure that she wanted people to read what she was writing. But she could draw and paint. And so as we were doing the guided meditation and she had all these great feels, she would just jot a few words down, and then she would paint something that was an expression of all of those feelings. And oh my goodness, she has created such a book of art, and every painting, every drawing is so different and so unique. Some colors are deep and rich in color, and others are really light and pastel-y and vibrant, and no two pictures are the same, and they really are an expression of her. So thank you for sharing that, because we can express our thoughts and our emotions in so many beautiful ways. There isn't one single way, but having them anchored somewhere, someplace to go to so that you can remember. We also focus on words of gratitude, because I think, well, we're immersed in a world that has a lot of negativity. So let's focus on something positive. And so every day there's some new words to anchor to help get you through maybe some of those tougher moments. I love having an affirmation to start my day with, because you're right away planting the seed for good thoughts, right? Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think you can see it. There's a board here. You can see one picture, but it's like a 2.5 foot by 3.5 foot billboard that I got some magazines from a travel place that they were just going to put in the recycle. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to pull out all the beautiful photos, not because I want to go there necessarily, but because there's something in that photo that brings out one of the emotions that I want to feel. And so I created a mood board. But the difference is that this time, Connie and Annie, is I put a picture of myself in the middle, and a little picture of like my 8-year-old self, because I don't really remember her. That's when I stopped losing memories for about 6 years. I put both of those photos in the middle, just as a reminder that I need to look after me. My dreams matter. My feelings matter. You know, my expectations, all of that stuff and things. I love it. I was like, oh my God. And it gives me energy, and it helps me to feel what it is that I want to feel. And most of that feeling is a way for me to move forward. So I don't have those regrets, so that I can live to who I am and create more of those stories from joy.
From joy. And believe, right? When we connect our hearts to the things that excite us, so having that mood board, for instance, evokes an energy, and it evokes that emotion, and that creates ripples, not only in your day, but to everyone around you. So just think how your beautiful board is already changing lives around you, right? Is that beautiful?
I'm going to see if I can gently show you a little, because I can't show you the whole thing.
Oh, I love it. Oh my gosh, yes.
You can kind of see it.
I love that.
Yeah. And there you are in the middle.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Try not to shake you up and make you fall over. It's just, I think the process of journaling, because I've never been a journaler. I keep trying. I'm just not. And I have to own that. But I'll journal notes. Right? But to journal my thoughts, I don't know. I can't do it. So then I just put it in images, just as you were saying with the paintings. And Annie, when I go to the dollar store, because I love the dollar store, I stopped buying notebooks with lines in them.
Yes.
And I started getting the dot ones.
Oh, yes.
That way there's no limitation on how it needs to be formatted.
Yep.
My notes stay on the lined ones, but when I'm thinking and just trying to get things on paper, I use my dot one.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Look at all the cool stuff happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's joy in action, right? All that you're doing, what Annie has expressed through her journaling, I love that. And you, Laura, that's joy, right? And joy doesn't have to be big things. What really, I just really want to share with everyone that joy is one of the highest levels of emotion that we can attain. And yet joy, see? Yes. But are we really experiencing it? You know, we have moments of happiness, and I say moments because often they're here and then they go. But to achieve joy is that next level up. And I have found that when we are living joyfully, that's when we're connected to us inside.
Exactly.
That person inside, right?
Yeah, our life view is complete.
Mm-hmm.
We're feeling that serenity, and we do that through the process of transfiguration.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome.
I keep this next to me because this is how I coach. So I love it, Connie.
Beautiful.
Oh my God. We're talking about so many beautiful things. I want to add, I guess, to the story that I was sharing earlier, just to kind of give you more of the beautiful side of it. So when we did go to the celebration of life for this friend that passed that we didn't get to see in the hospital before he died, we were sharing the stories, as many people do, to help you heal. And his mom had believed and had regretted that he had never gotten married, that he never had a family, that he never had that experience like she wanted him to have. Only to hear the stories of all of his friends going, no, he never stayed home by himself. He was out to lunch with somebody new every single day. Like, which friend is he going to hang out with for lunch today? And then he had a different friend for supper. And then he had a different friend that evening and a different friend that weekend. He was never alone.
Mm-hmm.
He was always surrounded by love and always surrounded by friends.
Yeah.
And she was like, I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
So to have those experiences, share those stories, the stories can help bring clarity to some of the regrets that some people may believe still exist.
I agree. 100%. Yeah.
And she felt such peace. I'm like, good.
Mm-hmm. And she needed that, right? Yeah. Yeah.
But it was also a space for the people who were left to have conversations with each other. Like me and this other lady, we did not speak for almost 20 years because something had happened between us, right? Mm-hmm. But because we were all sharing stories, because we weren't there for ourselves, we were there for this other person, we had the space and the opportunity to talk it out. Mm-hmm. Now we're friends again. Like, it's fine.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, right? Mm-hmm. Never would have expected that to happen at a celebration of life, but it did because for it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Okay, so Connie, I want to make sure that we know where to find you, and of course, your favorite way to communicate.
Okay, so I can be found on my website at conniekobylko.com. I have a beautiful journey waiting for you called Your Light Within. So I welcome all of you to come and be a part of the experience. It's a gentle and yet fun-filled, joyful journey of connecting to your dreams, being that little boy, that little girl who still wants to live fully. You get to really and truly create your best life story. So what does that look like? Let's play and have some adventure. I'm on all the social media platforms, on Instagram, Connie Kobylko, and as well on LinkedIn. And I just really want everyone to take every day and collect beautiful moments. That's all you need to do. That, when you find little things, whether it's having that great cup of coffee in the morning, hanging out with a friend, you taking time for you, just collecting beautiful moments. Oh, I see beautiful colors in pens. It's getting me excited.
I'm visualizing everything that you're saying here. We're collecting all those beautiful moments to make a nice, pretty rainbow and bouquet.
That's exactly it, right? It's the little things. When we look at all the little things, I look out my window and I see blue skies and sunshine. I go, thank you. Thank you. And you know what? When it is raining, we could look at rain and snowstorms as being not so great things. But you know what? Go out there, be in the rain, get wet, get splashed. Why not? And because I live in Canada and we have snow here, I like to go outside and be that little kid, and I'll do snow angels on fresh snow. It's so much fun. You get your arms going in the air, great energy. And so sometimes you'll see snow angels scattered around the neighborhood. That's me. Spreading joy, still being that little girl having fun.
What part of Canada are you in, Connie?
I'm in Edmonton, Alberta, so in Western Canada.
Yeah. Everybody's in Edmonton. Now I'm on the East Coast.
Oh, love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
And I'm in Toronto.
I'm going to have to come visit you in Toronto, Annie.
There you go.
Yep.
We have such a beautiful country, though, right? But I'm so grateful for Blue Talks and this gift that you are creating, because you are giving us the chance to share our story, and we all have one. We all have one, and they are all so beautiful. I want everyone to know that no matter what your walk in life has been and where you are today, it's your story. Share it. And Blue Talks does that for us. We get to share our story in the most beautiful community. And I'm so honored to be here, right? Because you are warmth and you're inspiration, and you're that guiding light, that warmth that we all need, and that joy. You're the joy that we all need. So thank you.
I'm glad this is recorded. I'll just take that as a testimonial.
Oh, there you go. That's true, right?
Yeah, it's
true.
I love it too. And I can only say great things because I've been a part of many communities, and it's very rare for the person or people running the community to not just want to connect with you on your good day, but also connect with you on your not so good days.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Corey has always been that person for me.
I love that.
Even Heidi, and just like the connections that I have made here are like the connections I've made nowhere else. They are family.
That's true, right?
Yeah, I love it so much.
There you go.
Connie, I also like to hold space at the end of an interview. Oh, tongue twister right now. Just in case there's something on your head or in your heart that you just need to share. So what would you love to leave people with? You have about a minute and a half.
I want people to know that there is no such thing as the perfect world or a perfect life. Mm-hmm. I had to rediscover myself through a brain injury. I had a time where I couldn't talk. I didn't know words. I didn't know how to care for myself.
Oh.
But I found me, and I found this new me. And all of us has a beautiful me inside of us. We have this beautiful light, and it's called Your Light Within. And I want you to connect to that light. So I want all of our listeners, all of our viewers, to stop waiting for someday. That day doesn't exist, but there is a word that truly does fit, and it's called today. Start living today, because there is no better time than now to really connect to your dreams and your aspirations and live life. And so you are really saying, I am living my best life, and life looks good on me.
Life does look good on you. So I'm going to call this the official close of the interview. I do invite you to stay for the next few minutes because I like to do a little sharing of how we felt about the interview and our favorite pieces. I'm going to start with you, Connie. What is something that stood out to you in our conversation today?
That's so easy, actually. What a difference it is connecting with other hearts,
Mhm.
right? So instead of just having a day by myself, I got to share some beautiful moments with two beautiful hearts. And that's what we're meant to do, is connect with other people, even if it's in the simplest of ways, like I said, with sharing a smile as you walk by.
Mhm.
And it is the warmth and just really feeling your genuineness, right? Your interest in me, making me feel valued and heard. And little things like that make such a big difference in people's day. And you truly have made a big difference in mine today.
Aw,
You're
thank
going in
you.
my journal. You're going in my journal as my gratitude, because I always do 5 gratitudes at the end of every day. So I go to sleep with great thoughts resting on my heart,
Mhm.
and you're it.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you, Connie.
I love that.
What about you, Annie? What is something that stood out to you?
When we were talking about forgotten dreams,
Mm-hmm.
I had this image of, we just shoved them into a vault and then we forgot the password. And I thought, well, what do we do when we forget the password? Because I just did that yesterday. I hadn't gone into something in a long time and I got the password wrong and I forgot it. Just reset the password. You get another start. And then when you go in after not having been inside for a long time, you're like, wow, this is cool. Right? So just reset the password, because you have the right to your joy.
It's true. Oh, that's beautiful.
I'm trying to remember all the different forms of regrets that you had mentioned, because it's always really interesting. Like, what is it that we worry about when is there anything left to worry about? I don't know. It's a question that's very personal for people. But at a time where you're like, should I be worrying? Why am I worrying? Those regrets are interesting, because where's my energy? Is my energy on this is my next step? Is my energy on, oh, I should have went to school? Is my energy on, I should have talked to my family or repaired a relationship? And I like that there are patterns, because what it feels like is that at the end of life, they were seeking more joy. They were seeking more connection. And that tends to happen in relationships with themselves and relationships with others. Which, based off our conversations that we've had all week, is the definition of happiness. So really, they were denying themselves their way of experiencing more happiness and more joy. Wow. I love it.
No problem.
Again, thank you so much, Connie, for being here and sharing everything with us. We have about 60 seconds left. You're more than welcome to share any other insights. Annie, do you mind if I just take a moment and then
You go ahead.
Okay.
You earned it. Go have your joy.
Go have fun for like 60 seconds and then I'll come to the switcheroo.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you would want to share, Connie?
I do, actually. When I am a life celebrant in that role, what I know to be true is we're most remembered for how we've made people feel, not for all the material things that we've had. And if we can continue sprinkling our joy into the world and making people feel good just by sharing a smile, saying a hello, and by us really connecting to our dreams and our visions, then we are creating that beautiful atmosphere, that beautiful energy for everyone around us, and we are leaving this world a better place. And I think that's so important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also meant to add, and I just remembered this. So my background is as a certified financial planner. So part of the job is talking to people about retirement. And I find it very interesting when people come to me and they talk about it as if like, okay, so what do I do now with, as if it's like, I've finished this and now I get to live my life. And I've always found that really odd, that there's this kind of like a disconnect.
Mhm.
So I really appreciated what you said about, let's change this from retired to reignited and re-inspired. Like, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not done yet.
No,
And
there's always so many questions.
I try to get people to understand, like, way before retirement, like this is just evolutions of your life. It's not a place where you end and then start something else. It's just another time.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, love that.
So thank you again, Connie. There's always so many questions, never enough time, but so much love all around.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, this has been a joy.
Awesome.
Oh,
Bye, Connie. We
Bye
love
for
you.
now.
Connie. Take care.
Bye. Okay, our next guest is hovering behind the scenes. Maria, just give me a thumbs up if you're ready to join us. Awesome. Hi, Maria. You are, yeah, there you go.
Hello, Laura and Annie. It's such a pleasure to be here. What an honor.
Hi, Maria.
I was going through the schedule and list of people of today, and I realized everybody's name ended in E, and then there was you at the end of the day. I was like, oh, Maria stands out even more. There you go. And I'm like, even my co-host's name ends in
I was going to say, mine ends with an E, yours ends with an A. So now we've got everybody done.
Oh, it's so good. Okay, so Maria, I think you know what I'm going to be asking here, but that's okay because the answer changes every single time. But I like to shake things up. So here's my opening question. If you could have other people describe you in 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
Wow. Besides wow. I guess wow would be one word, right? Driven
Ooh.
and compassionate.
Oh, is wow one of your first words?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay. You are.
Afterwards, I thought wow is going to be one of my words.
So sorry. Wow, driven, and
Compassionate.
Compassionate. Cool. So then these words, wow, driven, and compassionate, how do they play a role in the key message that you have for people?
Good question. I think the wow is because on the journey, there are moments that will be wow. And wow can be both, a good experience or an experience that can be challenging.
Mm.
And then there's going to be these wow moments where all of a sudden it's like, wow, I didn't think of it that way, or I didn't see it that way. So in some ways, wow is like a word that can encompass so much. And it also has where you don't have to express feelings. Like it kind of has that emotion in there at the same time.
I'm just thinking of all the times I've said wow. And it ranges from like, wow.
Sarcasm.
Right? So they're like, wow.
Excitement.
Yeah. And all the range in between.
Yeah.
Right.
So good.
And driven, I am driven in, of course, what I do, in the message that I am passionate about sharing and about changing how we see that perception. Kind of goes back to that wow, where, as you say, there's that sarcastic wow, like, oh wow, what are you thinking? Wow, they're still stuck. Or to, wow, tell me more.
Oh, that one says interesting.
Yeah. And then, of course, compassion. I feel, because we're all in our own worlds at time, and we're so focused on what's happening in our own world that we forget that someone else is what's happening in their world.
Mm.
And a lot of times it's by having that compassion that we stop and say, yeah, maybe today I'm having a challenge. And that my other person that I'm speaking to, maybe everything in their life is going well, or maybe in their life, they're having their own challenge. And so actually, in some ways, it's kind of, now that I'm thinking of it, those three can make like a whole sentence, because again, it comes down to, wow, I'm only looking at myself rather than, oh, wow, that person is going through something. Oh, wow, what an experience that other person has had, right? So it kind of goes back into the emotions, the curiosity. Are we being kind to someone, and even listening to someone? Because that's where that wow comes in too, is how do we get a wow unless we're listening to ourselves and to someone else?
Mm. So then what is your core message so that we have some context?
I know, who would have thought wow would have been such a fantastic word. My core message is about being who you are. And that's it. It's being who you are right now, not who you were 5 minutes ago, not who you were yesterday, not who you're going to be tomorrow. Who are you are right now, and accept it fully.
Oh. That, I think that's the part that I still struggle with. And it's come up a few times in these interviews, is you have this version of you, you have this version of you, or different facet of you. And I like to use the example of, I have a spiritual side of me, whatever that looks like, and I have a nerdy side of me. And when we think of the stereotypical version of each of these, they seem like completely opposite sides of the spectrum. But yet it's in the same person that is me. So then how do I have an acceptance for both sides without having any sort of rejection for the other side?
And that is a dilemma most people have. Whereas when you think about it, nerdy and spirituality, they're really walking hand in hand together. Why can we not be spiritual and nerdy at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the part that a lot of times we forget, because we want to separate things like, no, this is my nerdy side and this is my spiritual side. And they cannot, I deal with the in-between, where I go, everything entwines. It's interwoven. There is no this or that or either or. It's together.
Okay, now I want to reference the upside down.
The upside down.
Yeah, from Stranger Things. Because it very much does feel like we're wearing different hats all the time, or we've siloed ourselves into these different versions or different modes of who we are, or even the roles that we play.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes out even in the language that we use.
Yes.
So how do we even, if we go to that level, how do we shift the language that we're using every day to be more of that embodiment language, that acceptance of the multifaceted version of ourselves?
And that is very deep.
Yeah, that's me. I'm a deep person.
You're a deep person, right? And I always go, because I have like a care framework. And in that is first giving yourself compassion, right? Being conscious, but also giving yourself compassion. And then we need to be aware. What, like you said, like we have things that happen in our life that turn our lives upside down.
Yeah.
And we might be aware that our lives are upside down. And sometimes we're just out there because society tells us we have to fix it. We have to straighten ourselves up. Okay, personally, I don't like being upside down because I kind of get nauseated and all that kind of stuff. So of course, right? However, sometimes we do feel like we're topsy-turvy. We're upside down because things happened in our lives where everything seems upright, right? And then we're kind of like, why am I kind of disjointed and all of this? And when we be aware of it and we're acknowledging it, we're not trying to fix it. We're just kind of like, okay, I get where I'm at now. And then look at it like, what is it that I can do? Is it something that I need to release that's inner? Like, is it something that needs to shift? Like, is it my mindset? Is it something that I need to take action in? It's about recognizing what action you need to take or what shift you need to make. And only then can we evolve. And evolve doesn't mean, oh, everything's done, one and done. It's, I'm okay. Evolving means every moment, every day, we just get a little closer into who we want to be and who we're being and accept. And it comes back to accepting who we are right now, which is an everyday journey. And I think sometimes we're such in a rush to say, this is who I'm going to become. And we're striving so much for that we forget who we are becoming in that journey. And we're forgetting to really aspect that journey and kind of go, what's the rush? Like, even when I get to where I'm thinking I'm supposed to be going, it's like being on holiday sometimes. I always go, when you're traveling, you're in the plane. Like, I love flying. I like the takeoff. But 5 minutes in, it's like, come on, let me be there.
No, I'm excited the whole time. I'm like, camera. Oh my God, camera. Yeah.
Right. And sometimes even when we get to our destinations, we're impatient. We're looking at things, and yet we're too busy taking pictures and not being in that moment and enjoying it, not realizing it, that anything we experience will stay in our memories. Yes, it's great to take the photos. And I don't know how many times you come back on the trip and you're flipping through the photos and you're like, why this one? Why this? Why this? Rather than saying, I want a photo that I can remember and it brings me back to that time, like, hey, yeah, this is when I was talking to that person. Or, it's that experience that we remember, rather than all these photos that all of a sudden now we're deleting.
Oh, I do not delete photos.
But you just forget to even look at them again. Like, you're like, oh, this is a good picture. And then you just like, next. And like, I just, and then you get that reminder like 4 years ago, and you're like, oh, I don't remember that.
I'm realizing that I'm very different with my photo taking than other people.
I've become more conscious and intentional. About pictures and video that I take, and actually going back and looking through them, because it kind of gives you like a timeline of you from hours ago, where you were, what was, where your mind was at, what you were thinking, feeling, when you took that picture, to later in the day, when, how are you thinking, feeling, where are you at now? It's such an interesting concept.
That's actually something I like to do with clients, because when you're working with the intangible, just like you do, Maria, like, how do you measure that? How do you put some sort of tangible element to the intangible? So usually if I do a coaching session where we talk about emotions and stuff, I'll get them to take a selfie before we start. And then I'll get them to take a selfie after we end it. And then they don't even have to send it to me. I just want them to compare their selfies, and they can see visually on their face how much they've grown, what they've realized.
Do you warn them to get like waterproof mascara before the session?
No, I shouldn't.
Here's a tip for you in the tip: wear waterproof.
Waterproof mascara.
Guys. Waterproof mascara is recommended.
Yeah. Then the guys would laugh. I think the men cry more in a conversation with me than the women do.
And that when we're dealing with the tangible, as you say, I mean, I deal in the grief. And that's one of the reasons why I call it the in-between, because there's that rawness of grief where everyone expects something's happened. And of course that can last years. The in-between is that time when we're yearning to go back to a time that was. We know that we can't. And we're so afraid of the future because it's so unknown. And a lot of times we have this thing about when we think of moving forward, it's almost like we're going to let go of our person. And that is a fear, because all of a sudden it's like, I'm going to forget who they are. I'm going to forget about them when I move on. And that's why sometimes even with language, I say it's moving forward, but it's moving forward together. And it takes a while for that shift to happen. Because a lot of times we're thinking of, I mean, even though I call my business Healing Heart, I used to dislike the word healing because it felt almost like forgetting. You know, like when we cut ourselves and it heals, all of a sudden it's over. There's that wound, but you move on. And yet it's about healing is really about healing our heart, where we can have more love than pain, and knowing that we will never forget them.
You must have been listening to our last conversation,
Right?
Where we were talking about.
But I didn't. I just noticed. I'd heard about your photo in the background. I love art.
Oh, yes. No, there's always synchronicities between every interview and every week, every day. I think it's really cool to see how whatever conversation we started with, and there's 5 a day, that even by the end of the day, you see the pattern in where people have gone naturally. And that's why I'm not trying to like pull out your top 10 tips and this and that, because we get to your value and who you are and your message and all of that naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do it naturally, then we're now open to hearing it. So I love all of that. And with that journey of grief, just to tie it all in, it's the same thing. If we're too busy in the grief and the shame, we're not ready to hear the things in joy or in love or in courage. We're not emotionally at that level yet.
We're not. And a lot of times I feel grief is just sort of simplified into emotions, right? It's almost like, okay, you're sad, you're angry. And even sometimes, even with the emotions, people judge someone else on, oh, they're crying. Man, they're constantly crying. Or if you're not crying, oh, well, they must be over it. Or if you're laughing. So I always go, even in grief, we can still have a lot of emotions. We can still find something funny and laugh. Doesn't mean that our grief is gone.
No. Yeah.
And so, however, sometimes it also goes in our bodies, because grief is not just in our emotions, it's in our bodies and how it shows up. It's in our mindset of how we show up. And so I always go, grief is really a mind, body, soul experience.
Yes.
It encompasses everything. And then all of us, because we're so unique, how we're going to go about grieving is going to be different. It's the same way I was explaining to someone, she had gone to a seminar, and there was a lucky person who had ended up winning a car.
Oh, wow.
I know, so fabulous, right? We were all kind of disappointed that it hadn't been us.
Yes.
but you know, but also enthusiastic for the person who did win.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and that's why I always go, like, we can have two emotions at the same time. You can be like joyous for the person who won and yet kind of ticked off that it wasn't us.
Yes.
Or, you know, right, that envious. And the woman that I was with had made a mention about, wow, she didn't look excited enough that she had won the car.
Yeah, projecting, yes.
And I'm kind of like, well, you know, if I had won, I'd probably be the same way too. And go up on stage and go, gee, thanks. I love it. Right. And people would go like, how fake is that? Like, look, she's not excited. She's not this. And I'm going, and I showed her afterwards. And I go, look, but if I were what you'd expect someone to win, rah, rah, jumping up and down and things like that. And she looked at me and she goes, whoa, that is like awful. Like, you're fake. I'm going, yes, we all have to be in our own being, in what shows up for us. There are people that are very emotional, very outwardly showing their emotions. And then there are some of us who are in who are kind of like a little reserved. And yet we're still all feeling emotions. We're just demonstrating them differently. And that's what grief is like. And I find that a lot of times people are being judged because they're not showing emotions outwardly and rather a little bit more stoic.
Hmm.
And both are correct and neither one is wrong.
So then how does this conversation of grief, which is how I know your area of expertise, how does that blend in with the being who you are right now? And I put that in capital letters with lots of exclamation points.
Because one, it took me a while to accept that I was a griever and I will be a griever for life.
Oh, okay.
And so a lot of times when people say a griever or you're grieving, the first thing they kind of look at like, okay, how fast can I leave?
Yeah.
Right? As soon as, and so my son died in 2009. So it has been over a decade. However, I still call myself a griever because I will be a griever for as long as I live, because that's as long as they have died. And so for that is accepting it, because a lot of times we want to hide it. And
Yeah.
that's with a lot of things that we've experienced. It's like, okay, I have to hide who I am.
Mhm.
And that's when you kind of call out like, well, that's kind of BS. Like I could be faith-based and I can show my faith. It might offend some people. Some people may be curious. Others may be, hey, that's so interesting. So am I. There's commonality. However, I'm not going to hide that I'm faith-based or that I'm spiritual or that I'm nerdy or that I'm kind of a little bit weird. My sense of humor is, that's kinky or whatever word you want to use. And that part of my frame and part of being me is also my grieving aspect of it. It is part of who I am. And so when we lean into it, when we embrace it, it's kind of like, yeah, that's who I am. You either, if someone doesn't like it, hey, so sad, goodbye. Or have a conversation about it. However, I feel that we cannot hide who we are because that does us harm because we're trying to conform into what someone else thinks that we're supposed to be. And we're rebelling against that. And then we feel like we're the ones out of sort and we can never figure out, because then we go around going, what's wrong? What's wrong with me? And that's how we kind of then go and move around in life because we're thinking something's wrong with who we are. And we're constantly in this fixing. Is that instead of embracing, we're kind of like, once we embrace, it's like that paragon shift.
Mhm.
Once you lean into something and you embrace it, it actually takes a burden and a weight off of you. Because then you are who you are. And people who are attracted to you will come because they just love who you are. And that's who you really want around us. We want someone who's like, hey, I love Laura and Annie for who they are. I want to hang out with them. And that's how you get full on support also. I find is that then people really support what you want to do. They're encouraging you to be who you are.
Making me cry again. This time out of love.
Love it.
No, I fully feel what you're saying, Maria. Because this year, when I had my birthday, I turned 40. And so I had a Zoom. Thank you. I had a Zoom birthday because I realized all my friends don't live anywhere near where I live. And somebody had mentioned that I'm in my F at 40s. I was like, yes, that describes how I feel a lot right now. But at the same time, this time last year, I couldn't walk. There was a lot of emotional things going on. Heidi had a conversation with me and she's like, look, Laura, I love you. I was like, yeah, I know. She's like, you have a lot of confidence in your skills, but she's like, you do not feel worthy. And as soon as she said that word, I was like, oh my God, yes, that's exactly how I felt.
Mhm.
Then comes my birthday party, you know, talking to all the lovely people in my life that I finally feel supported and loved by, which is kind of new. But then I started having one-on-one meetings with people just to tell them, not everybody I wanted to, but just a few, that basically said, I want more of you in my life because you just being you without saying anything, without doing anything, brings such value to my life that even just being in the room here, doing nothing, feels good. And that's when I realized that's what beingness is. That's what that worthiness feels like. I'm like, oh, so how do I do that for myself? Now that I finally recognize it in other people, how do I start to define that for myself, being who I am right now and not that past version that I'm still grieving?
Yeah, and that in itself is a journey. It's always evolving. And that's one of the reasons why I found, well, the care framework really came from my own journey, like yourself. Uh, Now, I always go at 50, I was excited. I'm one of these ones that loves aging,
Okay. Oh yeah, me too. I'm like, I have lash lines. Look.
right? It's like, at 50, I thought, wow, this is fabulous, right? And then I go, and then at 51, I crashed. And sometimes if people didn't know my story, they'd go, yeah, well, you're in your 50s. Of course, all of a sudden it hit you. And it's like, no, it crashed because my son died.
Oh.
So at 51, my son passed away. And that changed the whole view of all of a sudden it's not only am I in grief, then it's that self-identity because all of a sudden old wounds that I thought that I had dealt with rose up, right?
Mhm.
Unworthiness, the self-identity, all these things that kept popping up. And I go, in my journey for 10 years, I was kind of like stuck in the thing of wanting to conform what everybody else said about getting over, going back, and yet feeling that didn't feel right. And so I was kind of waging war within my own self. And it's like, what? And it wasn't until I realized that, wow, grief is not going anywhere. It's staying with me. Like, why do I need to get over something? And that's when the burden lifted. And that's when I thought, I need to have compassion for my own self of where I am. Accept the things in the past that these old wounds that I thought I had dealt with. And really, when I say dealt with, really, it's all about repression.
Shove it under.
Bring it down there, right? Like not really dealing with it. You just shove it and you're like, yeah, I'm over it. And then it would come back up. And when I acknowledge that, like I can't change what happened in the past. I can acknowledge it. I can be aware of it because sometimes we get this thing where people will go, oh, grievers need to accept. Well, I hate to tell you this, but grievers already know who died. Like, it's not a big surprise to us. It's not like you have to remind us. The acceptance comes in being who we are now. That's where I find in grief is because sometimes we want to go back to who people think we were beforehand, right? I mean, and we are. I mean, like when you said, what are the 3 words? When we're around different people, they see us in a different light than what we see ourselves.
Yes.
And sometimes, this is personally, I always found myself sort of a bit more, like I think other people would find me, would have words that were not appealing, but, like would bring me up. I'd have words that would put me down.
Yes.
But I don't know how to word that. And so sometimes, people would say this and I'm like, what? Really? That's me? Or there were times, especially in my grief years, and that's where I started changing the line. How you see me is what is your reality.
Exactly.
right? So if you see me as a kind, gentle, compassionate person that's generous, that's how, no matter what I do, that are what my actions will be to someone. If someone looks at me and goes, oh, that person doesn't know this, they're blah, 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 all these kind of nasty things, that's no matter what I do, that's the perception someone will have. And I've realized that I can't change someone's perception of me. I'm the only one that needs to be comfortable with who I am. And I have to accept myself for who I am being. And that comes back to Laura, like how you said, like, how is that? Is that I have to accept myself first of who I'm being. And then for other people, you know what? The ones who care for me and are supportive and things like that, like, then they're going to be the ones that will be attracted to me and will come into my life. The other ones, hey, we can have a curious conversation, keep in touch, or just not even being in each other's lives. And either one is okay. But a lot of times I think we're taught to be people pleasers. Like everybody has to like us.
Yes.
And that's when we stop being who we are.
Oh, very familiar. Yeah.
A question I learned, especially about this, is how do you turn it around? Well, not maybe turn it around, but for the people pleasers, hello, in the room. The powerful question that we never ask ourselves is, what would please me now?
That is powerful.
Hence the mood board.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know, Annie, and that's a wonderful question, the way you worded it. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I'm so used to being that person that other people wanted of me that I didn't know the answer. And so it is that exploration.
Yeah. And sometimes we don't even need to know the answer. That's, I think sometimes is that we're all constantly looking for answers.
Yes.
And sometimes it's like, there is no answer.
Mm-hmm.
It's just in that acceptance going, so today, what gives me pleasure? What brings me joy? What am I doing for myself this moment?
In this moment right now, I have this candle to, one, keep me warm because there's no heat on in this room and I have the door closed. And two, because it gives me light on a side that is very dark. And three, because it smells like lilacs, which is my favorite smell in the world. It's very relaxing.
Oh, yeah. My lilac. No, I don't know if they're lilac trees or lilac bushes, so they're growing.
Either or.
Either or.
I love walking in the neighborhood and just going, where's that lilac tree? Like, and it's so strong. And even if you take off a little piece and bring it home, it just perfumes the whole space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. We're fortunate. Well, you know what? Right now it's cherry blossom season.
Ooh.
And unfortunately they don't have a scent. They're pretty, but they don't have a scent.
Ah.
Yeah. I'm on the West Coast. Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So some streets are very pretty.
And messy all at the same time.
All at the same time. Well, I always go, it'd be a great photo. Got to take those cars out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're with AI now.
Oh, definitely.
Right?
Yeah. So, Maria, I want to ask one more question before I get into the whole closing of the interview. I want to know, we'll go more on the creative side. If there was one way that you have not shared your message yet, that you would like to share your message, we're going to get crazy, like, again, genie in a bottle, flick a switch, kind of make it happen. What way would you love to share your message that you haven't yet?
I haven't shared it in movement.
Ooh, you want to dance? Or maybe
like just
modern.
Because I've done it in art, art as in so when I say art, it's not like depending on, like, you can paint sort of picture, but it's more about using colors to be expression. So it's more expressionist of art, where you just get a canvas and you just get colors and you just let it free flow.
Yeah.
sort of aspect, right? And I don't think I've ever tried movement. I've tried grief yoga, right? But not the dance where it sometimes if you have the right music, you can just express yourself.
Okay, would you be willing to try it for the first time?
Sure.
Okay, we need
Yes,
to talk
music.
behind the scenes because I think you know this. I'm planning an online Facing Fears festival, which will eventually end up on the West Coast. But for now, I have to downplay to, of course, take care of myself first instead of all these grandiose visions. No, Laura, sustainability as we move forward. And I want to talk about fear. I want the stories of fear, and I want different types of performances, some of which could be dance. And if you want to share your message through dance, this would be the perfect platform to try it out. So.
Yeah, definitely. I'm game for it. I'd probably fall flat in my face, but hey.
Well, you can pre-record since it's going to be online, or you could do it live, either or.
I can say as someone who's got a dancing background that my most joyful, but also my most painful, my most confusing, my like whatever it is that I need to like bring it up and out. I find the movement of dance and music, and sometimes it could just be like in your car, blast the music and dance at the red light, you know, in your seat. I find that probably the best balm to my soul.
Yeah. Before we run out of time, Maria, I want to make sure that we know where to find you and your favorite way to communicate.
Okay. So I am on mariabelanic.com. That's my website. My favorite way to communicate is either text or WhatsApp. Canadian here, right? We love WhatsApp.
I don't know anybody in Canada, I guess, other than you and maybe a few others that use WhatsApp.
I use WhatsApp.
I thought it was just a standard, like all Canadians use WhatsApp. No? Oh, okay. That's what happens when you assume.
I don't know anybody on the East Coast that does.
Okay.
I only know people like Edmonton and further, and apparently now one in Ontario.
That's true. I have a couple friends out east and they don't use WhatsApp.
I didn't even hear of it until last year. I still don't know what it is.
Wow. There's the word for our session today is wow.
So then, okay, you said text. Are you asking people to go to your website to get your number, or are you sharing?
Yeah, basically email probably is easier.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good. And then we have about a minute and a half left. I like to hold space at the end for anything in your head or on your heart that you just want to leave people with. So what might that be?
So on there, they can actually, I do send out a weekly email. And really, it's not even just about tips, but it's in that aspect of accepting who you are, about being in, and especially in the grief. And there's resources that people can get, download. I have a journal which helps with the being, because really the questions are about what are you feeling today?
Yeah.
What is your body saying to you? So it's really being aware of your environment, but more so about you yourself, being aware of yourself in your present, like right at this moment. And that sometimes what we forget is who are we right now? And what are we feeling right now?
Peace and gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to call this the official close of the main interview. I do invite you to stay for the next few minutes, as I love to share some of the insights and favorite moments of each and every interview. But then you, Maria, get to stay as our last guest to just do a little recap of the day, and then we'll end everything. So I'm going to start with you, Maria. What's something that stood out to you during our conversation today?
I really loved how the conversation delved into each of our lives.
Thank you.
Right? How it's the sharing, and sharing in a vulnerable way and being supportive of one another. That is what I feel is that we need more of.
Thank you. Oh, I appreciate that so much. What about you, Annie? What's something that stood out to you in this conversation today?
Yeah. So we were talking about kind of the diving in, diving deep into that unknown, and maybe even being still to check in with ourselves, not knowing what we'll find. And then we may actually be surprised about what we find there. And the phrase that came to me was, well, that's interesting. Can you hear the dog?
Yeah.
So he's 17 pounds, big protector, like tiny dog, big voice.
Yes.
Not like me. Tiny but mighty. And so that phrase of, well, that's interesting, just gives us permission to not judge where we're at, not judge what we're feeling, not have to label it even, just say, that's interesting. And that brought me back to that word, wow. And in that moment where you say, well, that's interesting, it comes across as like, wow. Right? So that's kind of what was in my mind.
Oh, nice. Ooh, okay. I think one of the biggest, there's so many takeaways from everything. I just love it. One of the things I liked the most was when you said being who you are right now, which of course, capital letters, lots of exclamation points, that a big part of that was acceptance of this now version. And I don't want to say not looking for past versions of yourself, but not getting caught up looking in past versions of yourself or even future versions of yourself, but the present. It's the focus on the present and acceptance of the present. Because I've learned to focus, but the acceptance is like a whole other layer of learning and growing. Yeah. I think I loved that the most for sure. Is there anything else that you would like to share about today?
Well, it's been wonderful, ladies. I love this format, the bLU Talks, and just I think as we all have a message that's within us, and it's by sharing that I think we impact other people's lives, people that we haven't even met yet, who may be struggling with something that we've spoken about or shared about, been vulnerable about. And that to me is always when you have this platform where you're allowing that, and of course to be surrounded by just amazing women that are empowered. And I just love the light that radiates from both of you.
Thank you.
Right? It shines through. I mean, I can see it, and I love that. And it's not even about the colors that you surround yourself. It's the colors that are coming from you out and touching other people's lives. And I thank you for that. And I'm honored to be in your presence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's just all the sparkles. That's all, Maria.
No, it wasn't a sparkle. I noticed the earrings. I noticed things like that. But I also noticed people's colors.
Love that.
I've been working on my colors thanks to one of our previous guests. It's like, this color's slightly off. Doesn't quite look like I'm wearing makeup when I wear it, but it's a lot better than the colors I was wearing before. So I will take this moment to recap the day. Maria, you did get to see some of the interview before you. Did you notice any patterns that were coming up today?
We all are very passionate. And I also found that we all touch in on our inner wisdom, on our inner intuition. Right? It's very strong that I noticed, in the sense of, we've all lived life, and maybe it was we've had intuition from beforehand also, but we're really stepping into it more powerfully.
Yes. What about you, Annie? Did you notice any patterns from our conversations today?
Yeah, I'm looking at my notes, and it's so amazing how there's these like threads that just weave together.
Yep.
And I think, Maria, you just touched on one of them, which was, kind of going from the external world and environment to the internal truth of who we are and where we are. And one of our other guests, Connie, was talking about, instead of living for someday, how about we live for today, right? And we had conversations around our destiny identity and what does this say? Stepping into the top version of you now. And just at the same time, knowing that some things won't be tangible. They'll be intangible, and we step in. I think our first guest was basically talking about, taking that leap of faith, where you trust yourself without necessarily the proof of, because if you've never done this thing before, then you have no proof that everything will turn out okay, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that that's just so powerful, that whether you're grieving a person or whether you're grieving a version of yourself, you're still where you are, and that's perfectly okay. Mm-hmm. So those are just some of the things that, stood out for me. Yeah.
So some of the patterns that I've seen through today is a lot of people are asking the questions along the lines of like, what lights you up? What brings that sparkle? What makes your soul just be on fire? It's that inner passion that just fuels everything, that came up in every single conversation. Then, of course, this idea of presence and being in the present moment instead of the past or the future. Of course, there was a whole conversation of joy in almost every single person that we talked to. And again, that journey from the inside out, the wants from the inside out, the needs from the inside out. And of course, my favorite, bias favorite, we talked about courage a lot today. Yeah, see, everybody feels that one. I like to highlight the patterns because it does all connect. There is a lot of synchronicity, especially when you're in the right place. Mm-hmm. So if any of these patterns have connected with you, I encourage you to watch all of the interviews of today, because there's a lot there, and we love to bounce ideas off of each other. So I want to thank my co-host, Annie, for being here with me, bringing your curiosity and your questions. I want to thank all of my guests that we interviewed today. I want to thank the people watching live and on the replay, no matter when you watch the replay, because I appreciate each and every one of you for holding space, for stories, for sharing, for just adding your energy to all of this. So I will remind you, this is just day 4 of the 5-day Blue Talks Amplify Your Message. You can join us tomorrow, same bat channel, same bat time. We start at 10 a.m. Eastern. I keep doing all the time conversions in my head. And we end around 1:45-ish Eastern. We are on Facebook, we are on LinkedIn, and we're on YouTube. So I'll see you tomorrow for day 5. Much love, everyone, and I will see you two behind the scenes. So I'm going to click the button and I'm going to dance and sing.
Yay!